You ready to begin?
Let's do it.
Okay. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Shop and Chivalry Podcast. I'm here with my guest today. I just met him off the street, picked him up. Joshua Schmolner?
Joshua Toellner?
Just kidding. Joshua Toellner, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm so glad to see you.
You as well. You and your pretty face there. How do you stay young, man? You've got such a young-looking face. I don't know how you do it.
I stay young by people telling me I constantly look 12 years old.
So I haven't seen you in what? Must have been like, what, 4 years?
3 or 4 years, yeah.
You look younger than you did. I don't get it.
I'm telling you, it's the glasses.
Is it the glasses?
It's the glasses.
Well, you had glasses back then.
No, I didn't.
Are you sure?
100%.
I think I always envisioned you with glasses then.
No, it was, so I started wearing them a little bit, like right as you were leaving.
Okay.
And it was purely a fashion choice.
So you did wear glasses then. I
didn't need them unless I was like standing way away from the radar scope.
Gotcha.
And I could see a little bit better then, but I still,
because I think you had the glasses clip for the headset, right?
I did, but again, I'm a sucker for like accessories and office supplies and stuff like that. So I had the chance to try out some new equipment. So I was like, yeah, let's do it.
For sure.
Clip some crap to my face.
So, Christine Fury, she likes to tell the story about how in fourth grade, so we had the desks where there was like a cavity underneath and we kept everything in there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way. I'm a nerd for like accessories and stuff. And so at that age, I'd bring in my dad's office supplies and I'd put them in there. I'd have like a 3-hole punch, a stapler, because I was a nerd.
Yeah.
And I thought that that's what I needed to, be prepared for a day of drawing whales and things of that nature.
And like constantly readjust the stapler if people weren't paying enough attention to you.
Yeah, for sure. It was a swing line too. So
line it up right here, red, beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
So I very distinctly remember when I started having to wear glasses all the time, because it was only a couple of years ago. It's funny, I was actually having a conversation with...
It's better be funny if you say it's funny.
With a classmate. I was having a conversation with a classmate this morning, and she's like this... she's got one of those purses that has everything in it.
Yeah, it's like...
Always.
My wife?
Yeah. I guess. I don't know if it's a superpower amongst like just specific women or all women or what.
Something. Yeah, it's got to be some of that.
So, God bless her for having everything that you could ever need. I'm looking at a computer screen today and I'm like, oh my God, do I need a new prescription already? I've only been wearing glasses for a year or two. And then I take them off and they're just god awful filthy. And my father would be so ashamed of me.
It's a weird thing.
He's a clean freak.
Is he?
Yeah.
Why? Is there...
He's so he goes 100% into everything. I'll give him 150% even. Like he gets hobbies, and that's all he does.
Yeah,
that's his whole like personality for about 5 years, and then he picks a new thing.
He's like Ryan Gosling prepping for a movie, I guess. Yeah. Apparently Ryan Gosling for The Notebook spent like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I don't know, 8 years in a cabinet making shop, a Southern cabinet making shop, I think in the Carolinas, and he wore the whole get up, talk like him, it's the whole method actor thing, but yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
At least
it's kind of outrageous.
He probably came out of that with an awesome extra skill. Knowing cabinet makers, he probably makes more selling cabinets than being in movies anymore.
I don't know. So anyway.
So anyhow.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God, they're filthy. And lo and behold, she's got the microfiber cloth that's just ready to go. She's like, hold on, I've got this. Let me do that for you. And this is after I had an ink stain on my uniform. And she's like, I've got a little travel thing of hairspray right here, right now. Go ahead. That'll take that out of there for you. And I got this super absorbent other little cloth in here too that you can. And I was like, this woman is a godsend. That's wow. I thought I was prepared for this class with like a pack of highlighters.
Yeah.
Not the case. So anyhow, I cleaned them off.
Yeah.
And I could see perfectly again.
Yeah.
And forgetting how I started the story, we'll loop back around. It was a traumatic thing for when I started wearing glasses often. That's what it was. I told her, I was like, I'm new to wearing glasses. I'm sorry. I don't keep all this stuff with me.
Why are you apologetic about it?
I probably gave her some compliment that sounded like I was being a jerk, like we were talking about before. I genuinely like people.
Yeah.
I genuinely want to give them compliments.
Yeah.
But apparently I say it in a way that makes people think that I'm just making fun of them.
It's so funny how true that is. Like we're talking about, what's an example you gave? Like, I like that shirt color or something.
Yeah. So like I'd see somebody in a new outfit or they changed their hair or something. So like you've got your hair a little bit longer, and I think that looks really nice the way that you're growing it now.
Yeah, but that's not a compliment because I know it looks nice.
Yeah. Like, have you seen me?
Have you seen me? Yeah, no. That's so true though. I see what you're saying, because there's been times where I've told somebody like, "Hey, man, you look like you're going to the gym. Yeah, you look good." Right. And they'll kind of respond with like skepticism, like,
yeah, they'll hit you with a thanks.
Yeah.
But then
thanks?
what else? What else are you about to say?
Exactly. Where's the punchline? But that's the plague of somebody who,
that's it.
Is constantly throwing some sort of smirk or comment out at people. So
like I was telling you, it's like kind of the premise of like all these shows where you've had like bad people and bad things happening to them because they're bad, like Always Sunny is so funny because they're just beyond the pale, awful people.
Yeah.
But that one you feel okay watching about because they always like get it in the end. It turns out something bad happens to them as a consequence. Sure.
And my favorite thing is like when they did crack trying to get financial assistance, right? Yeah. But it's a recurring theme throughout the season where they constantly revisit this like crack problem that they have. Like it's such a great show. I love that show. I actually haven't finished all the way through. I'm probably like season 4. But because at the time it was...
Well, you're way behind because I think there's like 23 seasons of that. Yeah. I don't know how they do it.
Well, I've seen like ones from different seasons here or there, but I was mostly involved with like Parks and Rec and The Office, as like a show that I wanted to put on in the background. So
sweeter, nicer things.
I get, in general. Yeah. Just in general. Yeah. One of my favorite things to say to people on just in like a passing comment is, they'll say, if somebody says something's impossible, it'll be that line from Mac, and it'll be like, well, first of all things are possible through Christ. So jot that down real quick. I think they were trying to maybe have a party in a house or something. Or...
So I've got a great question for you. You talked about watching The Office. Jillian and I just had this conversation, and that was one of the phrases. And Jillian proposes that you could probably get by in life only responding with one of 3 phrases, that being one of them. Okay. The other one being, Kelly from The Office, with her, first of all, how dare you? Yeah. She's like, that one and Mac's thing about like through Christ, all things are possible. And she's like, man, probably one more. There's probably one other thing. Yeah. Like maybe something a little more joyful or nice. Like, but I don't know what it would be. So like, if you've got any good quotes.
Michael Scott has one that's like, in a way, I knew what I was doing. In a more accurate sense, I had no idea what I was doing.
And that's it. That's the 3.
Is that it?
You could throw those into any situation and probably be fine.
Or one of Aaron's quotes is like, I think it's like being in a relationship with somebody is putting up with all the things that make you dislike them. I think that's love.
That's pretty solid assessment.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd go with that.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So bringing it back around for anybody that I've ever given a compliment to who probably thought that I was just being an ass. The reason I wear glasses is because I was crying really hard one time, and then my eyes just stopped focusing after that. Seriously, for hours, I was like, I'm rubbing my eyes and I'm trying to see, and I just couldn't get them back into focus.
Really?
Period. Like nothing. Like usually I can take these off right now and be fine. Mm-hmm. 20-ish.
Moderately attractive. Fine is when you got the glasses on.
Oh, I can't do it with headphones. Never mind.
You botched the execution.
Yeah. So anyhow, my eyes wouldn't go back into focus. So I finally went and saw the eye doctor. And the way he explained it, I thought was so cool. He was like, do you suffer from headaches? No, not really, kind of sometimes. And he's like, so basically the muscles in your eyes, like they always worked, but they were like this all the time. He's like, and then one day they just gave up and just lost focus. And that was it. He's like, your glasses wear from now on.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's coming from me. I've been having to focus on things a little more. One thing I've noticed that I've gone through, like it happens now, and it's not like the floaties that happens. It's I constantly have things in my eyes where it's like, have you ever looked through a camera and there's something on the lens, right?
Yeah.
Or look through a lens and everywhere you look, it's in the same area because it's like imposed on the lens. That's what my eyes are doing.
Ooh.
And it's weird. It's nothing big, but it's like I can see I have a dirty lens, and it's something that's really, really annoying. I tried to explain it to my wife. I don't think I explained it very well, but I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's like literally there's like, I don't know. I guess I need to wash my eyes out. Is that a thing?
All I'm thinking is like when I see you again in 4 or 5 years, you're going to have an eye patch.
Yes. I need a lens cover.
Just kick it old school, man. Don't do any fancy fake eyes.
Fake guys?
Fake guys. Don't do any fake guys. Do real guys, Brian.
That's where my standard is, honestly. All right, man. So look, let's
get this on track.
Yeah. So it's never going to be on track, honestly. So we met each other at Moody.
Yes.
At that wonderful place. I know, right? We won't get into that too quick. But so I started out as a retrainee into air traffic control. I came from a maintenance crew field. Now at the time there was this like retrainee mafia there, right?
For a little, yeah.
There were 3 of us. Oh, by the way, so you remember the other guy, Justin. Right? Shout out to Justin Adair. His brother was in the last class that I just graduated.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah. That's really awesome. Neat. Use the knowledge that you got, stay in for a few years, and then go get that private sector money like this.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, getting into, now you came from a prior maintenance like career field too, right?
Yeah. So I was munitions maintenance.
Okay. And explain what that is.
So munitions maintenance is broken up into a couple of different duty sections where you might have a different focus on missile maintenance or bombs and bullets or completely tangential to munitions, maintaining munitions trailers. So like you may never see a bomb or a bullet or a missile, but you will fix their means of conveyance.
Flares too, right?
Yeah, flare, all of that. So I'd done a little bit of work with just about everything, particularly while deployed. But my main focus was air-to-air missiles and the maintenance and storage and inspection and everything that goes along with that.
Excellent. And why'd you retrain?
So I retrained because I was getting to a point where I was an NCO and I started to realize, hey, I could be like not necessarily a section chief leading the whole flight or the whole section. Leading a group of NCOs as well. Right, leading a group of NCOs as well. And I had only ever been in one department, basically, in munitions out of like 7. So I thought to myself, hey, air traffic control had always been on my list, but munitions was the one that had a slot open first that got me sent to basic after I was out of high school and out of a job. So I went and did that. But then I started thinking to myself, okay, I don't really have any experience in any other section, but there's also this career field out here that has an enlistment bonus. So I was like, I'm just as good to a brand new career field as I would any other office in munitions. So let's give it a shot. Mm-hmm. Gave it a shot, got in, got a couple grand, and now I'm medically cross-training. Excellent. Yeah. So getting in there, because you got there before I did, and I'm not sure if we talked about this very much. Just a few months, though. It wasn't very long. Okay. Yeah, so they just must have thrown a bunch of retrainees at Moody at one point. Because I got in there, I think it was October 2012. Oh, well then it was 2012? Had to have been 13. No, for me, 2012.
Okay.
Did you get there in 14?
No. I got there in 13. I got there September and September.
Okay, 13. So not even a full year.
Perfect. So you spent some time in there.
I did.
What was that like? Now at the time,
at air traffic control or Moody?
Oh goodness, I kind of don't know where to start on that.
Yeah.
Answer that any way you want.
So it's a blurred line at this point, because I've met a couple of people. I have only ever met other controllers at Travis out in California, the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And they were all pretty decent. But I was telling you earlier, I didn't get really ingrained with the culture there to tell a difference. In Moody, the culture was bad. Bad. You've touched on it before. We're going to touch on it again because we need the catharsis. So I couldn't really tell you culture-wise. Like, I know it takes a very specific type of personality to... I think there's a type of personality that does okay in ATC, in air traffic, and they can get by. But I think really to get into air traffic control and like conquer, like really own it, like that's a different personality, and they're very hard to work with.
Yeah.
Let's say.
What aspects of that personality do you think, that stick out the most?
I think the aspect of that personality, and I think it's got a little bit in common too with the requirements of like of being a fighter pilot.
Yeah. Like,
not only do you have to be the shit at it, you've got to be confident. You've got to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But you got to tell yourself that too. Yeah. You've got to repeat it to yourself, and you got to tell all your friends. Yeah. And you've got to compete, I think, too. There's a certain level of, like, you're working as a team in the tower cab. You're working as a team in the IFR room. Yeah. Right? But there's always this kind of, we're all in competition and I'm better than you, or I'm not as good as so-and-so. And then that's how you know you're not a good controller. If you ever say, I don't think I'm as good as so-and-so, you just start signing your papers. Yeah. Start walking out the door. Because if you're not telling yourself how amazing you are and building up your own confidence and, building up that hype around yourself, I think it's really hard to keep that level of confidence and performance for the type of attitude that will do really well there. And unfortunately, I think that's an attitude that doesn't, I'm sure there's a lot of controllers out here watching now. They're like, this idiot, this freaking washout moron has no idea what we're talking about.
Definitely not.
No, they know. They know. That doesn't necessarily work well as part of an organization.
So I agree 100%. And I think a lot of it has to do with the tribal nature of the career field. Now, whenever you went through that tech school, the data, of course, I went through after, but I would imagine the washout data is probably pretty similar. Out of a class of 24 people, you're going to lose 40%.
At least. Yeah.
40% will not graduate from that original class. Of the 14 that remain, 107% will face washbacks. And that factors in people that wash back more than one time. And of course, there's people that do not wash back at all. There's entire classes that don't.
Right.
And then of those 14 that actually get to graduate, likely not members of the original class, it's a hodgepodge of maybe 3 or 4 classes that finally got people through.
They're going to get to the operational,
and 50% will wash
out.
Not
going to make it there,
which means out of a class of 24 people, they're going to only produce 7 controllers, and of those 7, they can wash out at any point in their career.
So that too, we were talking a little bit about stress, and I think to constantly have that, you've just got to be a person that stress focuses you and makes you do better. That ain't me. fully admitting that's not me. To have that constant level of stress, and even knowing, like, so when you PCS, when you leave at like any other career field, it feels like a fresh start, right? I can go and change whatever crappy attitude I had or people I didn't like or whatever. I get a whole new opportunity. Yeah. Right. I can change whatever I want to change about myself. Mm-hmm. You can do that in ATC, sure. But you're also at a new opportunity to fail and get washed out. Yeah. So that kind of, even though you've got a good thing coming, you've got a lot of stress coming on top of that where you just started back over.
Right. And again, you can wash out at any base, and different bases. ATC is different. The aircraft are different. The airspace is different. The complexity is different. I would say I would disagree with you slightly on you get a fresh start, because ATC is a very small career field. And so it's one of those things which people experience all the time, where as you're walking out the door, the person in your facility will call ahead for reasons I don't really understand, honestly, but they'll call ahead to the next facility and say, this person does X, Y, or Z. And even though we should know at this point how biased we can be about different things, behaviors, and actions, like you shouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a good thing, because then they start with that negative disposition climbing out of that hole. I mean, that's not productive. And it certainly makes it more difficult if somebody is motivated to change maybe a bad behavior. It makes it more difficult to do so.
It does. So yeah, there's really a lot of layers to overcome. If you get in the hole, you got to dig yourself back out of it. And oh, by the way, there's 5 other amazing controllers shoveling shit on you while you're trying to climb out.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's not an easy career field at all. And I want to go back to, kind of that whole confidence aspect of it. When I started at Keesler, and I'm teaching ATC now, right? Mm-hmm. We start having conversations like, hey, where you from? Well, I'm from here originally, and they'll ask me if I'm tower or radar.
Yeah,
I'll say both. Okay. Well, what they're doing is they're trying to rack and stack themselves. Where did you work? Mm-hmm. Tower or radar? Were you a watch supervisor? You're a watch supervisor in both.
Are you talking about prior service, or you're talking about?
No. These are military controllers and retirees. But what they're doing is they're trying to rack and stack and find out who you are based on known, we'll say, awards or accolades maybe, but they're trying to identify who you are if you're a good controller, because it's a very much skill-based career field. And so they want to know what opportunities you've been given, right, which ideally would be based on your performance ability, right? So, and I'll give you a good example. If you get your first rating, you feel like, man, I feel good, this is cool. I've got my first rating. Someone will say, yeah, you got a rating, but you're not 5 level. You can't work on your own yet. You get a 5 level. Yeah, I can work as a 5 level. Yeah, but you're not facility rated. You don't have all the positions. Right. Okay, I'm facility rated. Yeah, you're not a trainer.
Right.
Okay, I'm a trainer. But you're not an NCO and watch supervisor.
Yep.
And it's just constant, one thing after another. And so while you are kind of on this team in this tribal thing, but much like a tribe, is that there's levels to it. Mm-hmm. And they're quick to subordinate you on the appropriate level. And it's not, as you point out, it's not good for an organization.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you got to decide whether you believe in co-opetition.
I like that.
Right.
Man, that term hits.
There's a lot of arguments that co-opetition is awful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but like I said, if you believe in it and you do well, there's a bunch of people that do really, really well. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I love the Air Force. I've been in the Air Force all my life. My dad was enlisted, so I grew up a brat. I enlisted straight out of high school. So my first love in a situation like that is to the Air Force. So I care more about the organization than the skill. And I think that was really just kind of a mismatch.
And I think that's where you and I bonded. Because we saw this, and we saw what this sort of, how do you put it?
Co-opetition.
Co-opetition.
It's like cooperation and competition.
I love it. It's fantastic.
No, don't use it. It's awful.
I love the term, damn it. But I noticed kind of the same thing you did, is that it didn't make sense. And a symptom of this was like, as we were progressing through the ATC training, we were looking for more responsibility. And we had the rank, we had all this stuff, we had experience, but it didn't matter because it wasn't ATC experience. Even when it came down to like just blue Air Force type stuff.
Right.
It's like they didn't want to hear any opinion because we hadn't checked the boxes within the career field. And I always found that so frustrating.
It was so annoying because it felt like it canceled out all of your experience and any professional military education you had beforehand.
Yeah.
So this was kind of like all for naught. Like it's locked behind this door, this vague door of whatever experience that they want to say, and that was another problem you and I had. We love the metrics.
Yeah.
Right. We want to know. We tracked things like what's the service life on this? When's the next inspection due?
Yeah.
We wanted to know those type of things. I think you and I were very just number centric, and you're like, everything should be a countdown to the next thing.
Yeah. Look, you can't sit there and tell somebody, hey, you can have this opportunity when you're ready. Right. Define ready.
Right. What makes me ready? Give me the numbers, baby.
Let's tell me.
Give me that target.
And I remember even having this conversation multiple times where I'd say, look, set a target that's beyond what you think I can reach. Why not?
Yeah.
And what if I do really well? You've gained an asset.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And if I haven't, I get direct feedback and you get to sit on a pedestal and say, I told you so.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It seemed like just a perfect system, but yeah, they just...
But it was always this kind of amorphous thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, we'll know when we know. We are experienced controllers. We'll know when you're ready. And they might. I don't know what it is.
We're air traffic controllers who run a dysfunctional organization. Believe me, we know, we get it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Yeah. It's a good time.
Good time.
Good time. But yeah, I mean, having this sort of this vague understanding of what standards were within the facility. I mean, it made, I think it was beneficial for those that were of those personalities that did really well, those type A personalities, to get into this sort of narcissistic or Machiavellian type of organizational structure, especially when they realized that they were on the better end of whatever that vague standard was.
Yeah. I feel like we need to slow down. I don't want to lose your listeners.
What's that?
I said I don't want to lose your listeners.
Oh no, it's all
These
good.
guys are assholes. Like, yeah. Just hang on. We'll probably say something funny.
But no, it was we talked about how you can come out of a situation like that, and you can come out, kind of torn and battered and resentful, but I mean, honestly, that situation. Well, I'll start with you. I mean, how did you come out of that? Because it did seem, and of course I've told you this was kind of confirmed, where they were like, yeah, they were actively trying to subvert any influence that I had initially, and then when I left, you and then other people as well, despite whatever positive things we did outside of the organization. But
yeah, how
did you get through that? How did you weaponize that, or maybe did it affect you in a negative way?
Oh, negatively, big time.
Yeah.
So, disclaimer, I'm great now.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Yeah.
Medicated. Whatever.
But the thing is, even throughout that, and this is something that I've envied about you, is that even despite and being in that situation alongside you, you were always really positive. You were always for the mission. You were always a great follower. I wasn't. I was very much like,
I think I'm
bad at times.
I think I clinged to that, like held on to it, clawing, and just begging to hang on to it, because I think I felt like it was the only thing I had.
Yeah.
Just kind of because of how bad things were.
Yeah.
So it didn't strengthen me. It broke me.
Yeah.
It broke me.
Perfect.
Like, so. I mean, I think a lot of different people have different ideas of like what rock bottom is.
Sure.
And I'm sure it's subjective. Everybody does have a different version of rock bottom.
Do you feel like you hit yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yeah. Lots of, I guess it's just kind of bad behaviors.
Yeah.
Self-destructive tendencies.
Yeah.
And a denial. And putting on that face. Like you say, I was always positive, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I put that on. I might have even believed it every now and then.
Well, I mean, like, you and I could have conversations, and it wasn't that. But it was very much like there was a more favorable opinion of you because of that than, say, of me. And I envied it. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
There were times that I do feel like maybe I handled at least the outward attitude while you were there. And it might have even been because of you, to have somebody to compare to see that kind of image of like, okay, this is like, that's how I'm feeling. He's putting it out there. and it's not getting great feedback.
So there's a great book, I've said it a couple times, No Asshole Rule. And at the end of the book, they talk about the value of assholes. And you should always have one asshole in the organization. And I'm proud to say I filled that role, because one thing that an asshole does within an organization that's positive is they teach everybody how not to behave. Right. And I'm happy to have been the asshole for you, because the asshole often gets bestowed the trappings of, well, being an asshole. And they say, well, I don't want to, respond like that. And I'm seriously not taking offense to it. Like I'm genuinely glad if that's what you got out of it.
I did you proud and stepped into your shoes when you left.
My man.
Yeah. So, like I said, it was really kind of rock bottom. Like, even though putting on that face, and I'll say now, I think I am well on my way to becoming the man that I think I pretended to be a lot, which is a really kind of it's really kind of hard to describe. It's like I pretended to be this thing all along, but then it turned out like I actually was.
You were the whole time though, man. Like I remember getting there and thinking like, there's no way I'm going to outperform this guy. Legitimately.
Yeah.
That's literally that's literally the way I felt, because you had hard skills, you have soft skills. One of the reasons I click with you is because, well, I think we have a similar philosophy on really just people, how we should treat people, the Air Force, organizational management, standards and discipline, all those things. Like we click on that, and we're very reasonable about those things. And so we could discuss them at length. And I just felt like the perspective that you had was always something that I admired, and it pushed me to learn more about it so that we could evolve the conversation. Because I would tell my wife, some of my most thought-provoking, intellectually exercising conversations have always been with you.
Oh,
yeah, seriously though.
Yeah, no, I agree. Same.
So, and it's something that I've deeply missed for sure.
Yeah. So that's something too. And Facebook.
Go on.
Right. Facebook is this battleground. Facebook.
Are you on there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook. And
I meant like on the battleground.
On the battle. So sometimes I'll get in, I'll just say provocative things, like just to get it out of my system.
Like,
so just
like socks don't go with sandals. Is that, or are we beyond that?
So courageous.
Birkenstocks are trappings of the ruling class.
No, just get on, and like some rando that like we're both on a shared page or something that we subscribe to, they'll say something, and whether I believe it or not, just be like, that's not true. So that's super toxic. Yeah, yes, pot stirring. Sometimes you just got to get it out of your system because you think of something really clever to say, and this is why people think my compliments are double, probably are backhanded.
More than likely,
but
yeah.
So I'll say I've also taken this opportunity. I've got a very, very religious, conservative friend who's not you. I'm sorry. You're not religious.
That's not true.
And he posts some very right-leaning, provocative stuff sometimes.
Okay.
And I'm like, man, this is a great opportunity to hop on and just ask him questions.
Oh yeah.
Listen for understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Covey. Mm-hmm. I keep whispering because it sounds cool in my ears. I don't know if it sounds good to everybody else.
Yeah, no, probably not.
It's probably awful. We're gonna have to.
Yeah, thanks for the post-editing work, but
pump up the. I don't know. You got some switches over there. I don't know anything about this. So, anyways, no, I use it as an opportunity. He's like my safe place because I know he's never going to be like, I hate you. You're awful. Quit questioning my beliefs.
Until he does.
But getting on there and asking questions, genuine questions, to be like, how did you come to this? Like, what possessed you to share this thing that I so deeply disagree with? But never saying that. I wait for it to come to me. Mm-hmm. So, I'll ask him those questions, and eventually it'll get to the point and he'll be like, well, what do you think? I say, well, here's what this is finally, thank God you asked me. This is why I talk to you, because I want to hear myself talk. Which I sound great in these headphones.
I gotta say,
Most people, I think, I used to not like my voice, but I haven't heard it in a while. Uh-huh. It's great. It's really nice. So anyways, And I've gotten compliments from several of his friends whose circles I certainly don't run in. And they've been like, wow, you guys get on here and you speak so civilly to each other. And I'm like, this is a great opportunity to get to know my buddy a little bit better, get to know this kind of perspective that a lot of times I disagree with extra hard, to kind of understand where he came from, but also model that you can have these social media interactions without being a dickhead troll.
Right, right.
Even though I like to do that sometimes.
No, that's obviously fun, you know.
Like, what's the point of social media if you can't?
Yeah, I would say it's probably not the best place to do it. And honestly, Ocean Springs, my hometown, who I've been doing all the election episodes for, I've gotten invited to like a few of these pages that I don't normally follow. Man, there's so much drama on these damn pages, and it's just and what's bad is like it's people I know, and it's this whole thing about like kind of airing out dirty laundry that is kind of uncomfortable. Like I feel like my family's talking shit online, and it's like, oh, why would you say that? You know, and it's just it's frustrating. But definitely I do, maybe because it's so rare. When I get to have a conversation online and it is something about something meaningful and we have an honest discussion about something, even though my wife hates it because I'm there for like an hour, like, you know, talking.
Yeah. But Jillian does the same thing. She's like, oh my God, who are you fighting with on the internet again? I'm like, I'm not fighting with anybody.
Is that the go-to like phrase?
I'm modeling good behavior.
You're a model. You're a model. You're a social media model, man. How's it feel?
I try really hard.
You're going to start promoting like tonic water or some really terrible sports drink? Probably.
If there's money in it, sure, why not?
As long as the outcome is income.
I don't have a side hustle. Everybody's got a side hustle and I don't have one.
You're about to. You're a Facebook model. You're modeling good behavior.
Isn't that a terrible thing that we have to do now? That's the thing too. Because even with your friends, you've got this just kind of screen of, it's not anonymity, but you've got this barrier between you and just this unbridled, I can say whatever the hell I want just hit post and be done. And if I edit it, they're going to see that I edit it because now there's tags for that. Yeah. And think that I don't really believe this thing that I'm telling them, you know, whether I do or not.
Yeah.
So it's a big temptation. And like I said, I give into it every now and then. And I'm just like, this thing that you said is 180 degrees from right.
Yeah. Well, what is it like? I can't agree with you because then we both be wrong, right?
Right. Absolutely. I get on there and be like, hey, asking for a friend, what's the opposite of a hot take? What does that even mean?
What does that even mean?
What does it even mean?
Yeah. So leaving Moody. Okay.
Praise Allah.
Praise Allah, sure, I guess.
You're not going to get any of your regular listeners.
This is really going down.
Like, this guy.
I'm instantly regretting having you on now.
But I'll say I'll say something. I'll say something. I think it was one of your first political interviews where I thought was very interesting. The point that conservative politics and policies work great at a local level. And I was like, wow, I think I had to sit and think on that for a while. I was like, yeah, you know what? I think Melanie Allen. Yeah. Melanie Allen, I think, said that. And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting point. So,
well, I think in the context of that discussion,
and not to rehash the discussion, it's another episode. Go back and click on it. Give them some more views.
That's right.
He's on the YouTubes.
But one of the things I've wanted to talk about, if I can talk about a selfish perspective from these interviews, is that I really don't want it to focus on the letter next to your name, because you have to declare a party, that sort of thing. And, and at the local level, when you're dealing with people that you may know, that you went to school with, their families, I mean, standing on party lines doesn't do anything for you. It really doesn't. And you've got to take care of community, and that's the point. And the only thing that matters is what your perspective is. I tend to view that, at least at the federal level, that the government doesn't do many things very well, and they're least likely to influence me and my community. But I do believe that, we should weaponize or leverage the local government, the local community to take care of citizens, so that we can take care of our own backyard.
Let's go with leverage. I feel like America weaponizes everything. Like everything's like super aggressive, right?
Yeah.
I really started to notice that over the past like 4 or 5 years. Like every news story you get, like so-and-so was owned by so-and-so.
Yeah.
Somebody was completely crushed by this argument. And then you go watch it and like, this is a C-SPAN. What?
Yeah. They're literally confirming the undersecretary.
This is like a heated discussion at best. It's like, yeah, but they had a zinger. Like, I don't care about zingers in politics.
I remember clicking on this link, and it was one of these, right wing news things that comes across my Facebook, and it was like, General Mattis owns Kathleen Gillibrand in the Senate confirmation.
That type of stuff.
And I watched it.
Why are we so aggressive?
And the question was like, basically, how do you feel about homosexuals serving in the military? And very calmly, as Kathleen Gillibrand is, and General Mattis goes, well, honestly, Senator, I don't care what two consenting adults do in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And that was it, but it was this like bombshell thing, like
owned, crushed, slammed.
I feel like it's the same as like Sunday, monster trucks on Capitol Hill, Kathleen Gillibrand interviews.
That's one thing. If I could say, if there was like some sort of intervention for like every clickbait headline, like cost you so much to do, that would be great.
What do you think about Facebook suing Apple because Apple wants to stop them from collecting data on their devices? Yeah. It's a big thing. And then Facebook put out like a bunch of ads saying that Apple was killing small business because of that. Like, nah, dog, no, it's not. Like, it's hurting your company for sure. I think they said $15 billion is what's going to cost Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. I probably have that completely wrong, but it's in the billions for sure. So
out of how many though? The billions do they have? I think they'll be okay.
I do think it's substantial.
So I have I feel like it's an interesting take because I've never heard anybody say it before. I'm always very interested in marketing.
Okay.
I don't have a background in it. I don't really.
Just the phenomena of it.
It's just the phenomena of it. To see who is being targeted in marketing. To me says something. And I feel like it really kind of clues you in on like, if you want to identify like a majority opinion and a minority opinion, like you can really tell through mainstream marketing.
Sure.
Like who's the largest market segment. That's just the smart thing to target unless you're niche. So you kind of got to think about like what's being sold or being commoditized.
Sure.
Right. So it doesn't match for everything, reverse mortgages are obviously not looking at you and me.
Right.
They're trying to get our grandparents who are a foot in the grave. Right. So it kind of depends on the thing, but I think it's very interesting to see. And I feel pretty comfortable saying like, okay, if the marketing is facing this, if the marketing is trying to be representative of this, like, I feel like that's a pretty good indicator. Like, I don't think the marketing is as influential as it is influenced, So like the Cheerios commercial with like the interracial couple, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So that type of thing like draws hot debate. Like, okay, yeah, but it's a few kind of loud voices, and most other people don't care. It's
kind of like, I would say it's like Gillette talking about toxic masculinity on a shaving commercial.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And it's
because they know their largest market segment is going to buy into that. And it's like, wow, Gillette really cares. I'm a sensitive guy who doesn't want to be a toxic male.
I think there's that. I would personally think that Gillette, and again, without any research on this, we're purely speculating. We can appreciate that. Yeah. I think it's multidimensional because you have, obviously there could be a demographic of people who are now saying, I'm proud to move from Schick to Gillette because of their progressive stance on this issue. That's fantastic. But let's not forget that any press is good press, and there's a large portion of the people that buy those razors that are going to say, because I like guy stuff, I'm not going to apologize for being a guy. Like, and they're going to go to the website maybe to read it. Is this really their?
Yeah.
Is this really their position? And oh, by the way, we're like, buy one, get three free on razors. Oh, well, that's actually a pretty good deal. Let me go and do that. So
yeah, no, I think you have a point, and it's reinforced by things like I still drink Coke in spite of my whiteness. I I watched through that training, by the way. Did you watch it?
No.
Did you watch? Nope. You didn't watch it.
Mm-mm.
I'm going to lose you, all your listeners. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. So
I watched through. I was like, what is the big deal? I want to see what the deal is with this. And if you've ever been on this website, LinkedIn, and I actually have, it's been a big part of my my master's degree program.
I got hired off of LinkedIn, actually.
Yes. Well, so they've got a great learning platform, and it's just a big library. It's a huge library.
Yeah.
Coke picked this training and was like, this is what we want our people to see. There's some inclusiveness training. There's some diversity training. This is what we want them to see. And then somebody opened this book instead and was like, what is this awful thing that Coke is telling us to do?
What was it about?
So it was, what exactly? I know the big conflict at the end was people got so hyped because it was like, stop being so white. But when you go and watch and look at the training, it says to you, it's like, nowadays in the vernacular, whiteness is being co-opted by these bad habits, right? Like presumptuousness, just all these kind of negative things. They're like, whether you like it or not, society is starting to see those as synonyms, if you will, and kind of a presumptuous thing of like, somebody he's acting white, acting real white privilege, so it was like all of these negative things. And then it was really kind of a tongue-in-cheek statement.
Okay.
They're like, so stop being so white. I was like, that's probably a really bad place to do a tongue-in-cheek statement. Really poor. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny that it was connected with Coke. And then like you look into the
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Yes.
Coca-Cola. We should specify.
Coca-Cola.
It's amazing.
So, anyhow,
we've hung out for 3 hours now, and that's like the third Coke reference that we brought up.
At least
cocaine reference.
At least. Okay. It's just funny.
It's just funny. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you're saying. Coke.
So anyway, yeah. So you look into who initially levied this complaint, and they're this person that has had a history of like butting heads with the author of this training. It's just super suspicious. It's like,
nice.
It's such a big nothing burger story that people got so excited about.
That's awesome.
I don't know. And I thought it was funny. And I was like, I'm not any of those things, except for the white part. And so I don't like, and if anybody ever tells me I'm doing these things or being these things, I'm dynamic and I can change that. If I need to, like, they're negative things, I feel like they're negative. Somebody tells me I'm doing something negative.
A lot of these are predicated on the idea though of critical race theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in academia, it's like the term critical theory is a theory viewed of the lens of the word that typically follows critical. And so it's this idea of like,
thinking?
What's that?
Thinking? Critical thinking?
Right, but I'm saying like you're viewing it. So critical race theory would be the theory about viewing the world through the lens of race.
Oh, okay.
As the initial jump off point. And so by virtue of that, anything that you observe and try to think critically about it, you're thinking off the presupposition that it has to do with race. And so that's where it's difficult for me to follow, because I always have to unpack an issue where it's like, okay, well, this is because of, we'll say white fragility, patriarchy, whatever. And I say that may be, of course, critical race theory is through the objective lens of race as the initial presupposition, but it doesn't unpack the other factors. In fact, oftentimes what I've seen is that they're often not addressed. And if they are addressed, it's always through the lens of race and not through anything else. And one of the things that I've noticed this in recently, and we can talk about this if you want, I read the 150 some odd page report about racial disparity among blacks in the Air Force. Yeah. And to me, that was a really good example, because it felt like critical race theorists took the what's the title of it? I just said it. Sorry. I was working on a thought. The disparity. Mm-hmm. They took the disparity that was correlation at best and said, no, this is causality. But there was no causality in the report. And in fact, the report often said that, we can't determine causality, maybe socioeconomic factors that are outside the bounds of the Air Force. But that's not the narrative that comes out about it.
No, it's definitely not the narrative. And in that one, I have yet to read the whole thing, but I grazed through to check it out. I was very interested in it.
Yeah.
Grazed through. And that's the first thing that kind of caught me is it for kind of how provocative race is, whether now or in the past. I'm sure there's plenty of folks that'd be like, oh, it was plenty provocative before.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I'm not going to try to claim that it's more provocative or a bigger thing now.
We should say we're about to embark potentially on a conversation about race, and we're two white guys that probably had you're married to a black woman, and I know that you've had your issues in Georgia where someone will be like,
y'all ain't from around here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a quote.
Yeah,
that's a direct quote to that situation. Yes.
Yeah, so I've never experienced that. My view with racism has been like on a basketball court, like this white guy. But it's not the same. But we should say that that's the context from which we're talking about.
That is definitely definitely context. It's important to contextualize that because really all I can speak on it is I have a little bit of a foot because I have family members who have told me their stories, just kind of appalling stuff based on that. And, in looking at it, you're like, I can't really tell if they're not that racism deserves a devil's advocate ever, but it's like, I can't really tell, what reason this other person would have treated them like that except for this. So other than that, yes. Two white guys discussing this.
Should be the name of a podcast. Two white guys.
I don't think you
two
can
white guys discussing minority issues.
That
probably not.
That'd go over.
Yeah. But it is. Oh, sorry.
So my point about that was what I got was as controversial and provocative as that could be. I really appreciated the neutrality of the language that comprised it. If that makes any sense.
In the report or in the
report?
Okay, gotcha.
In the report,
gotcha.
Yeah. The narrative and all that behind it, honestly, I don't like it. Like you could say that there's some greater reason to study the narrative and understand culturally what's going on. Leave that to the historians, honestly. That's what that would be my take on it. But
well, if it's going on now, it's not a historical concept. It's something that I would like to keep it in the hands of the
sociologists?
No, well, the sociologists, but more so in the social economists that kind of understand incentives, cause and effects, and psychologists, things of that nature, because they can develop this sort of now.
And make no mistake, it's
prognosis.
It's being recorded. It's being commented on.
Sure. But I wouldn't throw the baby out with with the bathwater on this, and I would go so far as to say.
Sorry, were you about to say the baby with the black water?
You're not going to get me on my show because I'll edit it out. I'm just kidding. But I think the intent of the report was met is there actually disparity? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But that report didn't contain causality, and that's what should be investigated, certainly.
Yeah. And that's what people got so excited about that in the comment section. And they're like, you're looking at race. That makes you a racist. I'm like, well, no.
How about this?
But yeah, that's what I'll say. They did a great job of being like, here is the things we're observing. It probably merits more of a look.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that, kind of seeing the limitations and stating them up front and over. I felt like too, from what I saw, there was many times that they were like, here's just what we have observed. We're not saying why.
Exactly.
Probably ought to look into it.
Exactly. And that's what the report was. And that's great. I think that's a smart way to do it too. It probably costs a lot more money. It's going to cost millions more. But the point is that we had to say, is this worth looking into? And the answer is obviously yes. I'll tell you one of the things that came out from it that I've had to deal with. I wouldn't say been affected because it's really not a big deal. But like I wrote, in tech schoolers can't have a smartwatch, right? And this guy goes to point for a point out, right? On the screen.
Know that, but go on.
Well, they didn't have smartphone or smartwatches, I think, whenever you and I were going through.
No, not really.
Yeah. So he goes to point out, right? And so his shirt sleeve comes up, and it's an honest mistake. It's Monday. He's like, first run in the morning. I get it. You just forgot to take it off. Not a big deal. But I said, do you have a watch on? Well, it's been a problem for like people bringing phones. So write paperwork for it.
Right.
When I write paperwork, what has to be recorded from the unit going to the legal office is my race and my ethnicity and the individual that I wrote on. I understand why.
Interesting.
Because one of the things that...
Well, they're collecting those data points right
Exactly,
now.
Because they're trying to confirm, I think, the study, because that's not something that was actually recorded prior, right? And so they're trying to confirm what was correlated in that blacks or people of color, which the study primarily focused on blacks. There's another study that's going to talk about, I think, Hispanics and Asian Americans, but this was primarily focused on blacks. I think
there's another focus on women as well.
Yeah, I think so. So they're trying to confirm that and obviously look into maybe if there's a bias there or what have you. So that's what I've dealt with. But it's funny. So people may not know this, but I'm Hispanic and I'm white. Okay, I'm both things. But I was I can't do this. But so I went in to the command section, and I was like, look, I'm not trying to cause a problem here. I believe in the reason behind this, but I'm very curious what you listed as who I am.
Yeah.
Because in this, under the name of like trying to do this properly, I should tell you that
it's pronounced Belfort.
Man, I feel like that sounds, is that Spanish? Yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah, that's pretty good. Anyway.
Belfort. Transylvanian, maybe? Transylvanian. I haven't done accents in a while. I might be rusty.
But again, I just wanted to make sure that the proper data was in there because, again, that does matter. So
if you're looking for accurate data points.
Yeah, if this is meaningful, then we should be, right? So
we have been wrong before.
Me, never, except always.
Except always.
I've never not been wrong.
I haven't never not been incorrect.
Yeah, this is getting off.
Untangle that.
Yeah. Good luck. But I am. So one of the things I read is that Black airmen and NCOs are less likely to take advantage of opportunities for PME.
Okay.
And so I thought about that, and I thought, okay.
Professional military education. Everybody out there, I'm going to pull up Brian.
Yeah, there you go. And so these are opportunities where when you go and get them, they set you up to be promoted to the next rank.
Right.
Now, there's a few things that I would unpack from that, and I'm curious about your perspective, but I would say that this is a structure, and if you're black, you may be viewing this as a predominantly white structure, and somebody's telling you that if you go and do this thing, it'll mean prosperity for you. Mm-hmm. There might be an element of distrust from that, because I think there are things you can point to on the outside of the military that might precondition somebody to say, like, I don't really trust you because you might be feeding me a line.
Yeah.
You know? And so maybe that's part of it too. I would say that maybe there's also, because there's another part of that report that talks about you're more likely to receive non-judicial punishment if you're black, and more severe. And so somebody that might have recovered from that is now facing going to PME, and knowing that maybe they think in their mind, I know I'm not going to promote because I've got this thing in my record. Yeah. And the supervisor's pushing me, which may be coming from a good place, but they're like, well, I've already been beaten down by this punishment here. Right. I'm not going to go and put myself out there and put all this work towards it when I know I could just continue, coast, get my retirement, and then pull chocks. So what do you think? I mean, do you think there's anything to that?
I think there's definitely some merit to looking into compounding factors. Yeah, absolutely. This leads to that. That leads to this. And the next thing you know, you're kind of in a shell because you don't have that trust for one reason or another. And then when you look at this data and you can say, hey, here's the data points that are saying this is happening more. And I think that's a great point. And it's, these could start becoming gateways that have to be overcome, or barriers that have to be overcome to kind of get to that next point, and just the kind of domino effect.
Yeah,
certainly.
But that's an example of why, like, when we're discussing things through the lens of race as the primary presupposition, there's so much more left on the table, and because there's so much more opportunity there.
There is, but that's the reason people specialize in things, and we trust our specialists. But then unless we want to be a specialist on our own, it's our job to get a broader perspective, to go look into those other things.
I don't disagree with that.
So just because critical race theory exists doesn't mean that that's the be all end all of how I choose to perceive race.
Well, right. And I should say that
it's on me.
Speculate that you and I probably have a similar opinion on that. Like it's fine to view it as a problem through race, and maybe through that lens we've seen something that we wouldn't otherwise see.
And that's where I feel like the kind of critiques and the comment sections and everything go overboard, because they kind of take on the same narrow focus as this specialist while not holding any of the credentials.
Yeah. It's the pseudo-intellectual.
And that's just kind of obnoxious. Mm-hmm. What was it? I think it pops up as like an advertisement for the like online classes. And one of the things is like, the danger of knowing just enough to think that you're right, but not knowing enough to realize you're wrong.
Yeah.
And you see that all the time. And like I said, and people get hyper focused. And I think that's another symptom of the kind of social media conversations that we have.
Well, there's all sorts of terms for this. It's confirmation bias. It's living in an echo chamber. I mean, I think the proper way to go about any sort of thing that makes you feel uncomfortable is to find a way to confirm it, find a way to disprove it. And somewhere in the middle of those two things, maybe it's Aristotle's golden mean, but in the middle of those two things, the proper ethic or the proper facts.
And when you say disprove it too, I think also keep in mind that you're only going to be able to disprove it to yourself. Well, you're never going to be able to, and that's been kind of the benefits of the conversations I've been having with my buddy. Mm-hmm. I can't say for sure, but I think our thinking has gotten a degree closer on these different conversations, because I realize like I'm never going to roll in there and convince him, start thinking this way or that way. You need to change your mind that 40 years of Southern Baptism and living in Georgia, I'm not going to reverse that. I'm not going to change that about you. So I can disprove this thing, that whatever thing he said, but I've got to be content knowing that I'm not going to be the one that spits out facts that he's going to go, yeah, you're right. Humbly, I'm going to change all these things.
Humbly, we've got to approach it from both ends as well and say that
it's not even humbly anymore. I feel like it's to the point that it's so counterproductive that you get into these. You entrench people. You entrench people and you entrench yourself when you start coming at this fact. Here's the data points for this. Like, data points are great for studies. Data points are not great for having a conversation with somebody who's not interested in your data points.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that there's caution there to have is that you can't sit there and just convince somebody, with facts when maybe they have a, more metaphysical approach to that certain thing. It's less about the facts. It's more about the feeling. It's maybe more about the experiences that they've had within their families or what they've seen.
Absolutely. I think it seems like a lot of people fail to realize how powerful emotions are and how so much of our thinking is emotional. And it seems like facts are facts. This thing exists the way it exists. 1 + 1 is 2, and I know these things, and I'm going to tell you 1 + 1 is 2, and I'm going to show you why too. Mm-hmm. I'm going to prove it out. And at the end of the day, you're going to be like, not only do I still think it's 3, but I now think you're a dick. So I don't want to hear anything else. You might have had the greatest point, and that point might be the saving point of the world.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's something about that though, asking questions and listening to understand and listening to know that you're not going to change somebody. It's hard, man. It is hard. It's hard because you want to, and I think too, there's a bit of that as a guy that you see a problem and you want to fix it. And like, that's such a big like marriage complaint that you hear all the time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I think there's a little bit of that's kind of against us as well, that we're like, we see this problem, we've got the concrete facts of how to fix it, boom, let's do it. And meanwhile, that just kind of screws everybody over. When if you had sat back and listened and say, this person doesn't want me to solve their problem, but they've put this message out here. All I can really do is find out a little bit more about that message and wait for them to come to you.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. There's an element of people think that discussing something is it's a battle, and it could just be a discussion.
Right.
And I ran into this a lot in ATC. I'm sure you did. Like, hey, what are your thoughts on this rule? Right. And then I would just say, oh, okay. And because again, it's one of those things, ATC, like if you start talking about like your perspective and nobody asks for it, it becomes an argument like, oh, okay. But then Pete would ask me and I would naively think that they were actually interested in what I had to say. And I'd say, and you know me, I'm like, I dive deep into things, you know? And so I'd say, well, you know, I see your point. I've read this and this. It leads me to believe X, Y, and Z. And an argument would result from that, and it turned, and it wouldn't be me arguing. Like they'd be arguing with me or at me. They'd be arguing at me.
It's co-opetition, Brian, because we know at the end of the day,
it's so frustrating.
If we beat our perspective over your head, we'll both have the perspective that I know is right.
I know,
and we all win as a team that way. That's sarcasm.
Yeah, I know. It makes it, God.
Just in case it wasn't coming through. So then they'd walk into the bathroom and have to slap themselves in the face a few times to get the aggression out that you didn't give them.
Yeah, right, yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I do think it's an endemic problem that we have, that we can't have these discussions. I think social media makes it bad. I think society's
headlines, and like I said, you see these aggressive headlines, and we're conditioning ourselves for it.
Yeah,
constantly. And we don't. It's not exciting if I don't see that somebody was getting slammed or murdered by words.
But again, so just to go back to things like, and I don't have a thing like particularly against like critical race theory. It just came up. But
one
you
want to talk about why it's wrong.
No. Well, I'm actually about to, but I don't mean that. But what I'm saying is that like, one of the things that I notice about people is that they're infinitely complex.
Yeah.
You are a white guy. You are in the Air Force. Like, you're all sorts of things. You're an amalgamation of all sorts of individual identities, and that's what makes you up. Right. And so to me, I think it's cheap, and it cheapens individuals as complex forms, as complex and valuable people, by just viewing it through the aspect of race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, again, I appreciate that that's the perspective, and it's obviously been successful in identifying, traps or maybe shadows where these issues have been, resting in, and bringing light to those issues. I appreciate that. It's just, I would hope that we're treading lightly on identifying what looks like a problem or what is a problem, and finding the right solution to it.
Yeah.
That's meaningful and long term, because I'll tell you,
and you're not going to come up with a one size fits all from any specialist, because like what you're saying to me makes me feel like you'd be the same type to walk in and talk to your podiatrist, and he's like, yeah, your foot looks really bad. I think you're going to have to lose your toe. And you're like, yeah, but I can't hear. And I really wish you would take a more holistic look at this, podiatrist.
I don't think I'm saying that.
Where it's your job as the patient to take the holistic look, right? And it's your job to know that this guy's a specialist, but there's also a specialist over here where I can go.
That's actually the point that I'm trying to make.
And I can go and broaden my perspective.
I'm saying that right, but I'm somebody who would view it from
so stop trying to make me wrong. You're bad at this. You're a bad host.
Yeah, well,
unsubscribe.
It's my show. It's show.
I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, look, and again, it's. I just hope that we, tread appropriately in it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Because again, I don't think it's a.
So to me, it all leads into focuses on education and the critical thinking again.
I'm right there with you, because that's a long-term solution. I wouldn't be opposed to saying, again, we've been talking about this in the context of the Air Force.
Like I think digital literacy needs to come in. I think they're actually hitting that in the Air Force. Digital literacy and evaluating sources.
Yeah.
Like the way, I've never had to do it in the Air Force before. I've always here's the TO. Yes, I trust it.
Yeah.
You should trust your TO.
Right.
Jesus, use it.
Yeah.
Not you, Jesus. You can do whatever you want. I'm not a religious man.
You don't have to keep saying that. It's okay.
So, but no, like the idea of evaluating sources, you know, if for nothing else, but not to piss off your coworkers when you come in talking about some nonsense you read on the internet. They're like, oh my God, I know this is wrong. Why are you even saying this? But you give that chance to evaluate sources. Like I said, the way that I only ever have had to in higher education.
Yeah. Or maybe just realize that, you know, you don't have to pontificate beliefs that you're really not that interested in and to talk about or research properly. Yeah. There's that aspect too.
That'd be great. but then you've got your Facebook megaphone. And I know. Why the hell not?
Yeah, one of the things what
are they going to do? Take away my birthday?
Well, what do you think the solution, as far as like what you can control in the Air Force, is towards the sort of disparity that exists?
What part of the solution can I be as far as the disparity?
Right.
I think so that there's so much weight on modeling things, and you hear that lead by example. But being the example, you know, genuinely having these things in your heart and genuinely treating people equally, but also be on the lookout.
Yeah.
For when it's not. So that at the very least, when somebody says, hey, there's this thing, and you go, oh, well, let me look into that at least. I trust you. And I all things being equal, I believe that could be an issue. I'll believe you and I'll look into it. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, just being the example and trusting people, but verifying. Who said that? Trickle down.
Right. We might get into that here in a second.
It's not a thing. Trickle down is several pages after cancel culture in the big dictionary of shit that's not real. Yeah, I went there. Sorry, listeners.
I'm pretty sure cancel culture is real.
I don't think so. Why do you think it's real? Come.
There's plenty of deplatforming that's occurred. I mean, I think the most obvious one is again, it's I agree that there was some insurrection, but I mean, Donald Trump was effectively canceled by like social media. You know, it does definitely exist.
Was he canceled or was he held accountable through marketing?
What authority?
The authority of the owners of
authority?
The owners of the platform. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's been some arguments as far as like, at what point do these platforms become
a social utility,
the public square, the social utility? Sure, I think that would be a hard one to win over on anybody.
I don't think it's far from it. You know, honestly, I think internet is arguably already a public utility.
It needs to be. And I personally believe it needs to be, especially.
I think the pandemic showed us why. I mean, in Ocean Springs is a very affluent community. Get this, only 38% of residents in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, actually qualified for a stimulus check.
30?
38. Which means 62% are above the single individual income of like 72,000 and 150 some odd thousand.
Good for them.
It's a very affluent. But despite that, consider this: a third of people didn't have internet at home during the pandemic to complete school.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. And again, if they can't go to school in a state where it's constitutionally required that public schools are provided, then it seems to be the case that they need to maybe consider making internet a public utility.
Yeah. So I'm all for that, but making Twitter a public utility?
I would say that Facebook is probably closer than anything. Facebook's a marketplace. People use it to check in that they're safe.
Sure.
That they're safe. Squadrons do that in the military. They leverage Facebook. They leverage Twitter. I think it's closer than people appreciate. You know, especially with its ability to say track and identify people, which of course Apple is fighting. So I don't think it's far from it. to be honest with you. And I think that there's going to be a class of utilities that are going to be social media, and they're going to have some.
Do you think maybe for a while there will be like a parallel kind of public version run with these private ones that are going at the same time?
I'll give you a good example.
You don't think they'd ever run parallel?
No, I don't. And here's why. So are you aware?
No.
So never mind, man. I'm just trying to flip through this. So,
period dot.
Period dot. So the IRS sent out to all these major tax companies, said, look, the internet is, I can turn that down, by the way. It kicks out some air.
Brought a jacket.
Okay, fair enough. That's probably going to freeze you out of that. But anyway, the IRS came out and said, look, we need to have a free platform online. People shouldn't be compelled to pay for a way to do their taxes, right? And so the IRS said, these companies, sorry, let me backtrack. So the IRS said, we're going to create a digital platform to where people can file all their taxes online for free.
Oh.
What do you think these companies did that require that revenue, right?
Yeah.
Every year. I said, no, we'll take care of it. And so they create it on their sites, but they don't advertise it. It's hidden. And if you click the wrong series of buttons, you'll be taken to a paid site. But
you end up in the freemium.
But there is a gateway on all the sites that exist. I filed my taxes this year through that without claiming being in the military, and I got it done for free, right?
Nice.
And so it does exist, but you have to find it. Right. And so basically they came out and said, we're going to put out a public utility so people can do this. And because there was already profit seeking by major companies, they said, no. We're going to provide this for free, and we're going to take care of this for you, but we guarantee you it's going to be for free. There was no guarantee or requirement for them to provide easy access to it. And that's where we are. And the problem is that the people that make that happen are lawmakers and things of that nature.
You're not putting out provocative statements through H&R Block,
Well, neither is Facebook as a company. Individuals are, and that's why they're getting to moderating. Right. Now, the question is when it becomes a public utility, if it becomes a public utility, will Facebook splinter into a public utility sector, a private utility sector, to where they can comply with, free and open speech and dialogue, giving you First Amendment protections, or will there be a decent amount of moderation allowed? Arguably arbitrary moderation allowed.
Yeah. Well, I think you stated your points well, but now I think you're a dick. I kid. That makes me interested to think what's your stance on like voting and regulation. There's a lot of regulations coming down the pipe in Georgia that I don't like.
Yeah, gerrymandering. They're going to be doing some of that. So, look, we need to focus the discussion, because when I think of like regulation of voting, like I think, are you curious about my position on like
accessibility?
Got to break that down. Are we talking about state, federal? Are we talking about, you having to have an ID or prove that you're able to vote, things of that nature?
Yeah, I guess like that's one of them. It drives me nuts that like by the virtue of I was born in America, I'm American, and like the minimum identification that everybody has is a social security number. Right? Like I've already got that. Why do I have to do anything else to vote?
I see your point, and certainly the same point, I would say that with the IRS not having to pay to file not having to pay someone to pay someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For money that you've earned.
I mean, I've only ever gotten returns. I'm pretty broke. I'm in the military.
Ditto.
Sorry. I don't think I ever said that. The views and opinions, they're mine only.
I'll put a banner up
and have been,
always will be.
Yeah.
I'll take care of that. Do not worry.
Okay.
I won't.
No, you never have. You keep saying it. I keep revisiting. Like you've got probably 50 or 60 extra YouTube views because I've gone back to check for your banner and it's not there.
It is.
You are really half-assing this whole podcast thing.
Look, you're not supposed to. my viewers don't know that, or at least they're okay with it. And thank you. So what were we talking about? Okay, yeah. So access, monetary access, obviously is something we I think needs to be addressed, solved, or what have you. And there are some ideas out there. I think ideally the low hanging fruit is that you shouldn't be charged, right?
We're back on the IRS thing.
Well, no, you shouldn't be charged to be able to vote. And the problem with a social security card, to your point, doesn't cost any money, right? Mm-hmm. But if you had to go get an ID card, that's going to cost you money. And of course, you get an ID card, then you have to prove things, like you have to prove residency and things of that nature. And so these are all compounding monetary effects that obviously create a problem. And so the question is, well, what can be done about that? That doesn't cost any money, or that takes an existing system and makes it more confirmable, if that makes sense. But I think...
You mean more confirmable?
Because I don't disagree with you. Like having a social security card should be enough. Sure.
That's what I'm like, man, we've got
but the answer is technology.
A logistics agency already in place if we want to keep this thing in the physical realm. Like USPS is a thing that exists no matter what state of repair it's in at any time.
I wouldn't say that's the answer personally.
No, I don't think it is either. And we were talking about the crypto and the non-fungible tokens and stuff like that. Yeah, mm-hmm. I firmly believe that all of that is on its way, and that's going to be the way until whatever next thing.
It could be that, and in the very least, some sort of encryption is going to be necessary. And of course, the problem is that encryption requires decryption, and of course, everything is unnecessarily politicized, and any sort of good state actor or agency or agent that's saying they can take care of it, there's somebody that's going to say there's no way in hell either we trust you or that you're going to be a good steward of this. And that's obviously a problem. So the question is, how can we remove that as much as possible? Personally, I just think a fingerprint does it. If you can match 66% of your fingerprints that you have, that you do at birth, and maybe you go in and update it, whatever. If you can do that, then you show up, you get your finger, and you take care of it.
Do you even need to show up?
Use your phone.
Yeah.
Use your phone. It's got a fingerprint thing. If you've got a phone that has that,
scientists get on it.
That capability, why not? Well, it's an app developer.
Yeah.
Like the technology exists. The fact that this is still a problem is beyond.
But then it comes
my capacity of patience, honestly.
But then it comes into the point that's like, who develops it? Do we pay more? Do we pay more taxes so the government develops this thing that we're doing for the government about the government, or do we let the public sector do it where they can probably do it better? But to where do their allegiances lie? How many Russian stockholders do they have?
Yeah, I think SpaceX should do it. SpaceX might be the only company that I trust.
They do everything.
They honestly, they seem to be doing right.
I trust them, but as the kids say, what's his name's being kind of sus.
He's like selling off all of his worldly possessions and whatnot. Like, I don't know. I think he's going to.
Has anybody checked on Elon Musk?
He's going to strap himself to a starship. That's what's going on here.
And why not?
Like, this is his grand finale. This is his martyrdom to Mars. Like, that's his end goal.
Yeah.
He's going to strap his ass to a rocket and fire it out there, and he's going to rendezvous with his Tesla that's in orbit around Mars. Mark my words. It's happening. He put it out there because he's going to land and drive on Mars with that thing. That's got a container in the trunk that's going to come out, be a re-entry vehicle. And it's going to go down there, and he's going to ride with old spaceman riding shotgun. Yeah, it's going to be a thing. He's already got the Google Maps for Mars. It's going to be on autopilot. He's going to put an orange around the steering wheel so it'll drive itself. Have you heard about that?
An orange around the...
Yeah, so apparently there's a thing in the earlier Teslas that had the autopilot where if you held onto the steering wheel, right, it would only drive autopilot if you had a hand on it. And so
they didn't want people like taking a nap.
Yeah, apparently an orange peel does it.
One of these days when I can afford a Tesla, I'll save another month for a bag of oranges.
What are your thoughts on Neuralink?
Neuralink?
Yeah.
Like controlling stuff with your mind?
No. Like, so
what are you talking about?
Elon wants to, drill like a hole in your skull, put a computer chip behind your ear, and then have electrodes throughout your brain.
Does he want to do that, or does he want people that want to do that to have the capability?
I'm here. I'm here, okay?
Drill me, Elon.
So
edit.
Nah, dog.
No.
So So what he talks about is that this has the capability to like reawaken nerves. And so somebody who is maybe has a loss of function in an extremity or maybe even fully paralyzed would be able to use functionality again. And they've proven this to some small degree.
So there's been some pretty similar stuff in like research for the blind, where you've got a camera that's translating the signals into electrical pulses and giving them basically like...
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Are they like cameras that are installed in the sockets or something? Or is it some sort of outside thing?
I don't know if that's...
Like a Google Glass thing?
That may be the plan. I think right now it's still like a glasses thing. And it might be a YouTube thing that's totally made up that I saw and fell for. But it looked cool.
Nice.
But apparently it's, it's hitting the right...
That should be a YouTube channel, fell for. The fell for channel, and you just fall for a bunch of futuristic things that have like a sliver of possibility. Like that's believable.
I mean, that was Star Trek, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So that's the whole idea, is that it translate whatever the camera is seeing into electrical impulses that, really all that's messed up is the equipment in the eyes. Yeah, I'm sure there's blind people listening to this right now being like, that's not that simple.
That's not that.
Also, why am I listening to this stupid podcast? I was tricked again.
Yeah.
Siri, this is not the podcast I wanted to listen to.
But yeah, so there's...
I know I'm blind, but I know this guy doesn't look like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm a lot heavier. So, one of the things he talked about is like it would be connected to your phone, so your interface would be with your phone, and you could upload information to your brain, right? Which, is amazing.
So
I think of the Matrix.
So semi non sequitur. Like I know it's like the way of things, and everybody has the phone right now. But I'm getting so tired of being like the next innovation, and it's just another app. Like that's not innovative.
You know what frustrates me? There was a guy at Moody who did this. Love this guy to death. I won't say his name, but because I'm about to talk shit about him.
Yeah.
But you'd be talking about something and he'd be in the room and he'd be Googling it and he would talk to you about it based on what he's Googled and read right there. I was like, man.
I'm right here, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was so obnoxious.
But it was just one of those things like he'd be like, actually, it's this, this, and this. And I'd be like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I read it here. Like, it's like, oh, okay. So you don't know, you just kind of picked it up like in the past few seconds.
So this person was so desperate to have some sort of connection with you.
Stop it.
And not sound stupid.
Stop it.
And this is how you talk about them later? Wow. This is why you need me.
You are such an asshole. I love you though.
It's just a different perspective.
Fair enough. Because he's a nice guy. Nice guy. That was his only thing. Is that kind of bugged me.
He was only a nice guy. Everything about him else sucked. Wow. I don't know who you're talking about, nor do I care to think.
No, it's fine. But it's fine. I'm glad you forgot about your bad habits. But yeah, so he even talked
Took
about...
me a second to catch that one.
He even talked about how you wouldn't have to talk to somebody using words. You could just transmit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Transmit thoughts.
Cool.
So it'd be like doing this podcast, but just staring at each other, be like,
But I mean, like as far as anybody else jacked in, they'd be hearing our voices.
So,
right?
One of the critiques.
I could only hope my brain voice sounds as cool as I sound in my.
Could you imagine if you could change your brain? Who would be your brain voice?
Probably Scorpion. Get over here.
He says like 4 words. Get over 3. like is it instead of binary, it's like trinary, and so like it's just a different combination of those words, and I'm supposed to have a scorpion trinary Bible fish.
No, get over here.
Hey, it's actually working.
Get over here. Get over here. All right.
It's kind of working. I still think it's limited. You ever seen The Office?
Fine, Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin? Oh, man. Why Steve Irwin?
It's just because he's just such a positive guy.
Yeah. Very, like everything's super dramatic.
Yeah, and everything was also amazing.
Yeah, that's true.
So I like being amazed. Why not, be amazed all the time?
Yeah, but it'd be the voice. Oh, I guess you're saying like hearing your own thoughts, right?
That is amazing. Wait, no, hearing somebody else's thoughts is amazing. Hearing my own thoughts is, what? Oh, there's a name for that. When you don't have an inner monologue.
People have that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How do they read silently?
Maybe they grunt. I don't know.
Like if you don't have an internal monologue, like you can't read silently. Like silent reading in class must have been so frustrating. Like how do you do that?
Please, just read it out loud. No, it's a thing.
Really? I could not imagine.
I guess I don't have it. I hear myself all the time. It's awful.
Well, then how do you know that people have it? You said you guess.
I've been told they have it. I read things.
Well, they read things out loud.
I've had them read to me.
Oh, this is fantastic. Yeah. So I'm not scared of the whole technology thing. I kind of embrace it. I'm actually hopeful. I've heard people say like, or ask, do you really want people listening to your internal thoughts? And I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea of that. And the reason being is because I think if everybody has it, they'll realize that we all have similar thoughts, fears, dispositions, biases, and things of that nature.
Or they'll make fun of you for it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Look, I have some pretty weird thoughts. I'll admit to it. Me and my wife want to do a segment on the podcast called What Did You Google?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You didn't have to make it weird. I appreciate that you did. I do.
What did you Google?
Yeah, what did you Google?
And how did that go?
Well, you will just talk about like things that we've Googled in the past, like probably 30 days or something. Because you Google some weird stuff, maybe.
Sure. Oh, I do all the time. There's times like totally innocent Googles that I'm like, oh God, like this is just gonna look weird if you read it, but I really needed to know this thing.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of that. But the thing is, the problem is like I Google things that are kind of like serious.
Okay.
And my wife will Google things like, why is my second toe longer than the first?
Why is that not serious? It's serious to her.
I don't think
she obviously wants to know about it, but it's worrisome enough that she is swiping across her little keyboard to figure out why.
I'm not saying that that's something that she actually Google. I'm the one who broke the growth plate in my foot. My second toe is longer than my front.
And I'd love to point out, she cares about you that much that she wants to know how to make your life better. And I would just like to point out that this obnoxious habit of this guy that you were just criticizing is you now want to monetize.
That's impressive.
You're like the nicest, awful human being I've ever met. God, I love you.
That's so impressive. Man, well done.
Look, you just pay attention a while and somebody's going to say some shit that they totally contradicted themselves on like 20 minutes ago.
Did I really contradict myself though? I guess so.
No, but I made it sound like you did at least.
That's true. Yeah. Are you scared of any technology?
No.
You're pretty comfortable with technology.
I love it. I'm that guy who like I get it.
Knows how to use SharePoint.
I know how to use SharePoint.
Better, worse, you're somebody who can build things in Access.
Dude. I try not to even do it anymore. That's another thing. Like while you're learning to be inclusive in the Air Force, like also maybe learn how to use Excel, you idiot. But that's just me being nerdy and.
Well, you got me into SharePoint, and now I love SharePoint.
Dude, I haven't been on it in a while, actually. Like, I love the idea of SharePoint.
I talk about you and SharePoint and Access like you're a demigod. Like, the things that you...
You know what I am? I am vaguely aware of the capabilities of these softwares, and I'm a tactical Googler.
Yeah. Well, you figured some pretty impressive stuff out, I'd say.
Thank you.
As
long as it... The biggest thing is trying to make sure that it is, and I hate to say dummy proof because I think that's just, it's true, but it's kind of rude, right? But the idea is just to make sure that it's got wide enough usability that that people are going to find some utility in it. Otherwise,
it's convenient enough for the end user.
Yeah. Either way, at the end of the day, sometimes you sit and you spend a week automating a process that took somebody 30 minutes before, and now it takes 25 because you automated it. Great job.
Sure.
And that's happened to me more times than not. But I stick with it.
You're fighting also these laggards that don't want to change either, and you're fighting people that have the capability, that are smart enough to figure out, but won't take the time to learn it, like using workflows. They're super convenient. You can do a lot with them, but people don't want it. You wouldn't need all this VPC software. Just use workflows.
Virtual Personnel Center.
Yeah. That routes EPRs and decorations, all of your performance reports in the Air Force.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And they're such crappy systems too.
Oh, they're terrible.
They're so terrible. They're slow. They're in and out all the time. That's one of the biggest things too. I hate, the Air Force is this big, like it's a technologically advanced, and we, try to keep everything. I worked in the commander's support staff for the past 3 years, right? So a lot of administrative work, really just kind of behind the scenes, like making sure that our pilots and our weather airmen and our air traffic controllers and everything, they can do their job every day and get recognition for it, and keep their pay and all this type of stuff, and have their evaluations go through the wickets smoothly to the point that they don't have to think about it. So a lot of times I'm sitting on a computer and I spend more time fighting and restarting the computer than I do doing my job.
You'll love this. So right now, Geisler's going through a comm issue where they can't print because it sends the computers into a blue screen of death.
Sounds about right.
Let me tell you, I don't know where I developed this, probably Moody, but when something like that happens, that meme that has Jack Nicholson from Mr. Deeds going, yes. Yeah. I think because it's so ridiculous. Like, how can that be a problem?
Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the most amazing thing I've ever seen, and if anybody can figure out how to do this, call Brian. He'll give you my number, text me. I was deployed.
It's on.
Please don't do this.
It's on the wall of the Love's gas station.
I asked you not to put it there, but you did it anyways.
Extension 13. He's lucky with that number. He goes by Dirty Mike.
The coolest thing I ever saw was somebody was like, go into the file explorer and the shared drive, and click on this folder. And I was like, all right, cool, yeah. And they're like, now that looks like a file, but it's not a file, but click on it. And I clicked on it and they're like, congratulations, all of your printers are routed and you can print right now. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's the most amazing thing. I have no idea how to do it. I would love to know how to do it. It's probably not something you can do without administrator access, but that's how nerdy and stupid I am about stuff like that. Like that just blew my mind. And I've talked about it for 5 years now. I saw this amazing thing.
AppSoc has that.
Of course they do.
Yeah. So I worked on this pitch for using the same shared calendar that you wanted to use.
You said pitch with a P?
With a pitch, yeah. Pitch.
That's what I said. I said pitch.
Pitch. But you said that though? But you said that?
Oh yeah.
So I pitched for months this idea about putting a shared calendar on there because you can track who puts things in there and all that stuff. Right?
We did this.
Exactly.
We did this.
Exactly. Because when I got
until the dinosaurs tore it down.
I know. When I got to Hurlburt, there was some issue where it was just on an Excel spreadsheet that was on a shared drive. And so somebody would go in and put their days in, right?
Yeah.
And of course it was by who put it in first. So what do you think happened? People would delete, move it down, put theirs above, right? Mm-hmm. There was some speculation that there might have been some civilians doing it, right?
Those civilians.
I know. So I said, okay, this is an easy fix. We can do a non-intrusive thing where we don't have to investigate everything. What we'll do is we'll just put the current stuff in here, put it on a shared calendar, the same structure. If it's on the calendar, right, that's a request. If it's on the schedule, it's approved.
Boom.
Right? Done. And you know exactly who put it in. Mm-hmm. You know who deletes it. Of course, you can only delete your own because you can set up those rights. It solved the problem completely.
Sometimes
took me months though.
Yeah. Sometimes when you realize, and it's a fairly easy thing to do like that, but it's fairly easy and you start describing the benefits of it, I think people get kind of like
there's no way it could
kind
be
of overwhelmed.
Yeah,
It can't be that easy. It does everything we want. It's going to take you 15 minutes to set it up, and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of, sometimes those benefits are unbelievable, and like if you're not comfortable with technology, you know, I think it's dumb, but I can certainly see why people would be like, you know, I don't believe that's going to work. I'm not going to let you waste your time on that.
I remember having this conversation. It was a similar concept. Like, oh, they're going to find a way around. Like, no, I've got all the rights.
Yeah.
You know, I can, you know, assess that and
you're trying to poke holes in your argument.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, knowing nothing about how it works.
Exactly. And I said, can you input things on an Excel spreadsheet?
They're like, yeah, what if they pee on it?
What are we talking about here?
I haven't.
Well, this is, of course, air traffic controllers always
pitch with a P.
So they always try and tear down the idea, right?
Yeah.
And they always go back to like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Right?
You want to know? You want to know how to stop that?
Can I finish?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm the guest, Brian. That's awful at this. How many episodes do you have?
Not enough to learn manners, apparently.
Too many. The way to stop that,
okay,
don't tell anybody you're working on it, and then present it to them, and then you say, hey, please try to find all the faults in this. Try to break it, and they'll never open it.
Yeah.
They'll just never open it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't get any of that.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
That's
a good technique.
Give that a try. Get back to me.
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of like the what's that story about having to opt out, like having to opt out of donorship of organ donorship. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have to go all the effort to say no, I don't want to, you're going to have more people that say I don't want to hit the mark. So fine.
Right.
I'm not going to read the back of my driver's license.
Yeah, I feel like that's.
I know I need that.
I feel like you know exactly what that's like if you're an ADT customer, because they make it such a pain in the ass to get out of. Yeah. And then after the pain in the ass, they still charge you for it. Like it's so frustrating. But anyway, yeah. So,
is it time for like a bathroom break? How long have we been going at it?
I don't know, man. I actually don't know when we started. I would have to look over there.
Oh, let's take a break. Let's do a little.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we'll get back to it. Like I said, once we hit that 2-hour mark, it's really just me BSing with you. I don't expect anybody to keep watching.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we'll go pee.
All right.
Oh God, we're back.
We're back.
So I suppose we can do a fantastic transition here and talk about what we were just talking about.
You're so good at those.
This is great. Yeah. So we were talking about. So what I was doing is I was tightening my chair, and I think I let out a grunt or something, and then
very manly grunt too. It was very hands-on, very woodworking-ish,
patriarchal, and power dominance type of,
and patriotic,
and I'll take that. Yeah, for sure.
I believe you went America.
But anyway, that brings up because you brought up, or I think I did. It's like, what is this? ASMR or something.
I'm excited because I feel like I maybe have a complete misunderstanding of what it actually is. And I'm excited to go forward in this conversation.
Okay.
Maybe just let me talk about it for a while and see how far off I get.
Yeah, let's do that. This is going to be fantastic.
So there's a great channel on YouTube called My Mechanics.
Okay.
Right? If you had only heard off recording.
And this is the ASMR thing, right?
I hope so. I think it is. Well, so this guy, you know what? I'm just going to play with this. He's Swedish, I believe. I believe he's a Swede.
Okay.
So he's got a workshop, and his thing is taking like old school hand tools, like cast iron stuff.
Yeah.
Just all this kind of mechanical stuff, old stuff, and it's stuff that's just beat to hell. And he restores it, and he makes a lot of replacement fasteners and stuff. He runs his own lathe, and it's really cool to watch. And what's great about it, he never talks. never says a single word. He's got some captions every now and then about like what he's doing, but otherwise the whole time you're listening to it, it's just this crystal clear sound of things being machined, metal being drilled out, carving wood. Let that sit for a second. And he never says anything. It's like, it's a really cool production by the end of it. And what I think is especially neat is he keeps a lot of this stuff and he uses it in future projects.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Super, super cool. I think you'd be into it big time. But from my understanding of ASMR, the fact that it's like super high definition audio that he's playing these things, like I'll set it to like a 5 volume and like I've fallen asleep to it before because it's just this kind of constant,
like ambient,
crystal
ambient
clear
sound.
Ambient, but manly. Working with tools.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I understand ASMR and that, but like people,
it's also available in other sectors.
Yeah. Like some people will just like make mouth noises around a microphone, which I can't do that. Like that's not like, I can do that. I'm just, I'm not willing to participate in that activity either as, provider or listener.
We'll see if the mics pick up well enough. But I had a coworker who was like, listen to these videos. They're ridiculous. And it would be this girl like, and here is a cupcake. Look at the frosting on the cupcake.
And she would just eat it. Oh, don't do that.
No, not necessarily as ridiculous as that, but like everything was super enunciated and you could hear when her tongue clicked off the roof of her mouth.
Yeah.
And it was
really weird.
I was like, that's odd. I'm fine with the tools and stuff making these sounds, but the people like speaking in this prosaic, I can't. That's unsettling for me.
Yeah. What's unsettling for a lot of people, especially in the Air Force, is that we had a lot of changes to like personal grooming standards, but not beards. Like men are so pissed off that they can't have beards right now.
I know, and it's always on the back of things like ponytails. Like, to be fair, the beard conversation has been ongoing for a long time. At some points, it's louder than others. I think it's great it's been hard getting used to, like seeing the ladies walk around with their hair is done a bit looser. It's just not the same thing you've seen, but
it'll quickly become a norm.
It'll quickly become a norm, and I really like that because anytime you can make people more comfortable doing what they're doing, if you're not thinking about having a headache because your hair is pulled back tight while you're trying to do your job, you get to put more focus on the job than this really kind of arbitrary image thing.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and for the longest time there's only men allowed in the service, and so men fit this sort of image where hair was not in the way and things of that nature, and they looked a certain way. People in uniform are sort of in a what you would maybe call like, well, they're uniform in the way that they look.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think women have been subjugated to that. They've been made to kind of fall in line. And so as a result, what happens in the military is that extremes occur. And so you have, like, for example, in the Airman Battle Uniform, the last regulation that had that as its primary uniform, instead in there, light creasing's authorized. But we know what light creasing actually looked like.
Yeah.
It looked like you could
somebody starching a paper airplane down their sleeves, and it's just
exactly, and
like
it's
shark fins.
And so it's reasonable to assume that women were under the same pressure to do the same and pull that hair back real slick.
Yeah,
because again, how do we describe people? Slick and sharp.
Slick and sharp.
Right.
And so there's even been I've seen some instances where people are like, some of these folks that are still old school are like, yeah, you can let your hair down. Sure, why not? Nobody's going to take you seriously. You're not going to look as good. And I'm like, that is such BS. And like, who is so old school that they don't follow the rules as they are? Like, what is...
More importantly...
That's not old school. That's just wrong.
What do you actually know about the military that you think that letting your hair down is going to somehow be some readiness issue?
Yeah, I don't know. There's an interesting line, I think, there's all kinds of benefits to standardization. Mm-hmm. I love that. Standardization just means that things can be efficient. A lot of times, what is done here is the same way it's done there.
An individual can pull it out of this place with this specialty and
plug it in
somewhere else. Exactly.
Right elsewhere. So like that's great. And then trying to find the balance with that and like tradition, right? Because tradition's another one of those kind of amorphous things that you can't really put into a metric.
Tradition, professionalism, whatever those things are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, finding the balance between those is always going to be really probably culturally dependent, and as in what does the up and coming generation want versus the outgoing yet still leading generation feel like is appropriate, and what kind of slack are they willing to give them, and how willing are they to like I said, put these things aside? Like, is it worth backing up somebody's hairline
exactly
an inch a year because we want them to look sharp?
Yeah. And I think that would be the contrast with the beards themselves. And frankly, so are you aware of the U.S. Air Force Beard Action Group Facebook page?
Is there?
It's a real thing. And I'll tell you, it's not something to wag your finger at. Like, they've gotten in touch with the EPA and talked about how beard shavings affects the ecological surroundings.
Really?
They're really pushing for this.
Nice.
It's a combined effort. There's officers that are at SOS, Squadron Officer School, that are making the case for this thing. One thing I brought up, I interviewed a functional on here. We ended up not releasing the episode. He was worried about being, such a high level, senior enlisted leader, having.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I know. And I did write by him, but I think he talked to people that maybe weren't as comfortable in the digital media, and I was going to put the whole banner up, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, where was I going with that?
You talked to him. We were talking about the beards. Maybe he said something controversial yet brave.
Brave. No, I talked about how one of the things. Oops, did that cut out? No. I talked about on this page how we had talked about beards on there, and I was gonna, I was excited to like kind of release it because.
Sorry, what was the other thing you said? You said like abolish hats, or on one of the posts.
Yeah. Look, let me tell you something. Let me finish this thought on beards, and I will go into hats. Okay?
Right? No, like I get it. I just thought it was so funny that it's like, defund the police, but defund hats first. Let's look at the real priorities.
Yeah, I think it was on a comment about beards, and I said, can we like something about, can we get serious? And then I went in this quick 3-point rant about beards, which I mean got a lot of likes, but it's anyway. But yeah, the beards. I mean, I think the problem with the beards is that it doesn't really solve health benefits. It doesn't impact health and wellness the way, having the hair all the way back does to women. We were talking about migraines and so easily avoidable.
Yeah.
As well. And frankly, men have a solution. They're really complaining that they can't shape it. They can't detail the beard.
Oh, right.
Because they can get shaving waivers. And I've had a shaving waiver before. It's not difficult to get.
Yeah.
But
there still is just kind of the cultural thing.
It's an allure.
It is.
That's what it is, because our military heroes now are allowed to wear beards.
Yeah.
And so,
do you think this, the maintainers are going to be allowed to wear shorts on the hot days in the flight line, which is something that only like our Australian counterparts have been able to do, and they're kind of in that same vein of European, and like all the European forces have been allowed to grow beards. Do you think maybe that's going to be, are the shorts the segue?
I'm not convinced that the shorts are going to be universally accepted, because again, the way the regulation reads is that units or wing commanders are going to be allowed to implement, guidance on how that's going to be worn. And I'm sure it's going to be just some ridiculous bureaucratic answer. You know what I mean? Like, it can only be during certain temperatures that you can do it, even though our bodies run at different temperatures, and some people work and do more than others. Like,
if you're working with any type of liquid, you don't want it to get on your shins.
Yeah, it's basically, I'm sure there's going to be shin guards, like chemical shin guards, but I think of it the same way that I think of like beanies.
Yeah.
So at Travis, during certain months of the year, beanies are authorized on the flight line, and other times they're not because they're hats. It's going to be something like that. That's the way it's going to. That's what I'm scared of.
There's more latitude with even those though. No.
Well, I'm also speaking of being in maintenance, like until 2013.
Sure.
But hats. Do you take issue with the hat?
I don't care.
Explain to me what the point of the hat is. You know? The hats are cover. We call it cover. Why do we call it cover?
Remaining pious?
What's that?
I don't know. Because it's not even, it's not cover. It's, oh man. What's the other? Concealment? It's not really cover. Fine. It's concealment.
Fine. I'll take that too.
No, I'm just BSing.
Yeah. From what though? What are we concealing? I'm not in South Mississippi. I'm not worried about Charlie in the woods sniping me. And that's my point is that like it should, if hats actually provide a tactical or operational advantage, that should be down to the installation or AOR commander. And guess what? I guarantee they'd say no.
Yeah.
No hats. There's no point to it.
Yeah.
There's no functional point. And I'll tell you where we start. Well, the damn flight cap.
It's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a good
one. No, I agree with you because they're kind of an interesting kind of blur of the line between like the uniform and like equipment.
Yeah.
Because their hats have a utility.
Okay, go on.
I mean, they're literally covered like shading your eyes. Like they do a thing. Right?
Not really, because if they were to do a thing, you would wear them in the way that they're allowed to do the thing, but they're supposed to be worn in a certain way. And oftentimes it doesn't even protect you from that. How many times have you been in formation, worn your hat properly, and you're like, God, I wish I had some sunglasses.
Touche, salesman.
I'm just saying, I can't stand the hats. Yeah. I want hats gone before I want beards. I'm dead serious. Like I cannot stand the hats. There's no functional, pragmatic utility to having hats in that damn uniform or any uniform for that matter. And further to the point,
I'll buy that.
one thing that I'm
not your enemy, Brian.
I know. But like, so about the whole hair thing, letting the hair down. If we go into a chemical attack, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You let your hair down. Boom. So that's something that people wearing beards don't really talk about that much, is that the when you have a beard, you don't get a good seal on the mask. Now I can make an argument against that because there's really no reason for us to carry a gas mask, very much anyway, because it's only because of, Russia and North Korea didn't get rid of smallpox and other nerve agents.
I've even heard the opposite. That is like,
I read that recently. Yeah.
If you've got a conservative length beard, you're not growing like this Duck Dynasty beard, you are going to get a good seal and it is going to work.
Yeah, they posted that on that page and I wanted to read some more about
advocates?
It. Yeah.
They got a real name.
The Beard Bros.
Beard Bros. They're beards.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think that, why do you think we're going through for this upheaval of tradition?
An upheaval?
Yeah, because that's kind of what we're doing, whether it be hats, whether it be,
we're not doing the hats.
We're going to do the hats. The hats are going to happen. They're going to happen before beards. Who knows? Goodness.
So why do you think
they're going to change the standard for the omelet size before they change either of those? I don't know.
Ridiculous notion.
I know.
They'll never change the omelet.
That's a standard, and that's an Air Force standard.
I know.
I know you know.
Do you know the standard? It's delicious.
Never mind. I'll get to that.
So why the upheaval in tradition, you'd say?
Yeah, like why are we going through and changing so many things? Like we're adding shorts. We did have a safari uniform back in the day. I think the 50s or something, where they had shorts, but I think that was more of a dress uniform. As far as all tan, there's actually pictures of it.
Beyond my historical knowledge.
Yeah, so go in the Air Museum in Travis and they actually have one in there.
Don't tell me what to do.
That's fine.
I love that museum, by the way.
Yeah,
if
it's
you're at Travis,
fantastic.
Go check it out. It's on base. It's free. Just go look at it. There's a bunch of great old guys that run it.
Oh yeah. I used to be a dedicated crew chief on a helicopter out there, but it's either there or it's in the Paul P. Raymondeta Airman Leadership School there across from the library. You got the gym, the library, and right across from that.
The helicopter is in the building?
No.
What?
No, the safari uniform.
Oh, okay.
It's in the computers? How do we get in the computer?
That transition sucked.
I know. But it does seem that we're doing that. We seem to be taking norms, institutional norms, and challenging them. Why do you think we're doing that?
I think, like I said, that's just kind of where the tilt of the balance is going. How much do you need to appreciate this tradition, and how much is it getting in your way, and how much do you believe that people's comfort, and not even comfort, like if people think their uniform looks cool, how much better are they going to work? That's a factor, as silly as it may sound to some, but like look good, feel good type of thing, so it really just, how much does this particular group of leadership understand and appreciate those things I think that really just comes down to personality.
Yeah.
I think, and just kind of that willingness to, at the very least, try these things.
I could definitely see that. I've had a thought that perhaps it's the product of 20 plus years of war. Because one of the things, when you think about, like, have you been deployed as part of ammo?
Yeah.
So when you're deployed, like, we love being deployed because
it is the pure job.
It's just the job, right? And it's 20 years of longing for that. And it's like, okay, well, when we're actually doing the tactical aspects of the mission, getting that done, we're focused on, does this work?
So you think it's a perspective of a population that's been more exposed to that environment where the fat is just kind of trimmed.
And so now we're coming back home and we're conditioned now to think like that. I mean, even that seems to be the Friday afternoon punchline, is find out what we're doing and why we're doing it and challenge those things. And I do believe that it bleeds over from being at war for so long and creating the right endurance and making people happy and being so focused on the mental aspect. Like, you've got to be mentally and readily available to go to war because we've been at war for 20 years. And I can't help but think that that's come home. Why do we put our hair back, as women? Yeah. Why is that so much more important than the pain that we put fellow airmen through?
Yeah. And that's what I think it's a big combination of all those things. Yeah. Just kind of the attitude of who's up top right now, plus that perspective like you're talking about. I'm sure all combines, particularly if you've got folks that are on the pulse and want to know and value what the people are saying, and they're kind of, what obstructions can I get out of the way so that my people work better, and how much do I truly believe that we're going to practice like we play, and so much is focused on this downrange fight and just kind of the pure job aspect of it. What can I get out of their way to do that? And I don't know. I think it's a brilliant holistic look to do that to make these types of choices.
It should be like pretty common, I think. I think you have to. I'm not convinced we're going to have, even our lifetime, some major technological transformation or some major transformation in the way we fight wars that we're going to make up a lot of ground. I think the advances we're going to make as a force are going to be in micro advances from micro changes in how we do things. And over the course of maybe the next 40, 50 years.
Something else to think about. We talk about this history of being at war for 20 years, but also the style of war might just be putting us into that mindset. You keep, I'm hearing more and more nowadays, there's less of this talk about insurgency and terrorism, and we're starting to lean into this near peer fight, right?
Near peer cyber and space type of
right.
Type
so
of
when
domain.
So when all this focuses on innovation to basically be better than your peer, versus innovation to save money or, just be lean to go fight terrorism, you're looking into innovation as a strategic advantage over these near peer enemies.
And you're talking about specifically innovations in technology that may be bleeding over into the HR or personnel realm.
I think the attitude of innovation. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah. So, if I'm saying, hey, we need to innovate our technology over here, we need to make this better, we need to fix this, we need to utilize the stuff in the private sector better as we bring it in and utilize it. I think you'd be remiss to say that those people are probably not looking at other things and thinking, hey,
sure,
maybe maybe there's some innovation to be done here.
The perspective has to bleed over for sure.
And there, and then I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. Like, does your tradition become innovation? And then are you living out your tradition by innovating and changing things? Where it becomes just kind of a meta kind of strategic look at things, at concepts like that?
I would say yes. And the reason I'd say yes is because...
I wasn't asking, I was telling you. It sounded like a question. I do that sometimes. Go ahead.
I apologize.
I'm telling you, they're going to be like, this guy is so confused about why everybody thinks he's an asshole. He's an asshole.
Yeah, well, our tradition, at least in, of course, we've got to consider tradition through time periods, right? And so right now, our tradition in the last 20 years is fighting, non-near peer asymmetric warfare, with people we can't distinguish between legal or lawful and unlawful combatants. It's been very difficult, and because of that, we've had to adjust our tactics. I mean, one of the jobs that I had, within airspace, you did an airspace gig as well. What we were doing. We were setting assets above named targets and developing pattern of life, and then of course trying to prosecute or extract those targets with minimal collateral damage. Yeah. It's very different from wars of even recent history. I mean, go back to the 90s where we had quasi near peer in engagements in Bosnia and Kosovo, as well as Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So I would say that, tradition and culture in the warfighting domain for sure evolves, and I think even outside of that, the way that we, like during Cold War, it was about buildup. Yeah, you can see that in military furniture. Having been somebody who enjoys woodworking, Cold War military furniture is very big, gaudy. It's imperial in nature. Yeah,
it's because everything was this kind of chest beating display.
But that's what it was, and so now it seems, to your point, we're getting into innovation as being the sort of motif of all of our actions, and we have to innovate. We're not necessarily, and again, I don't think we're going to run into a technology, a doctrine, a mindset that's going to be cataclysmic and changing, right, in a major way. It's going to be we're going to see the long-term change in an amalgamation of tiny innovations and tiny inventions. You know?
I can see that, and that's just the culture, and I feel like. Too, the way I feel like the Air Force tries to do like corporate modeling, where they try to, as a means of innovation, take these things that work in the private sector, whether, be it equipment, technology, or even leadership styles and theories, right? Those things show up. A lot of the stuff that I've seen in my professional military education, I turn around and read the same exact things in my...
The same
exact things, the same authors, the same theories in my project management master's courses.
What irritates the hell out of me, though, and you probably know where I'm going with this, is that you run into people within organizations, NCOs, senior NCOs, that complain about problems, call it millennials or whatever, or that they can't motivate people. Yeah. And they're not paying attention to what the PME, the education that's been studied and produced by academics for years, that the military has paid for people that invested millions, that companies invest millions to get
and you know what's
to boost production, and they won't do it. They'll say, nope, this is Air Force training, does nothing for me. It's so frustrating.
This goes back to the kind of emotional thing that I was talking about, and how so many people are so not even so many people. I think human beings, honestly, are so emotionally dependent, I guess, is a good way to say. Like, you do everything based on your emotions. Even if you've got some facts, figures, you feel one way about them or another. You apply your emotional perspective to them and how they make you feel, and you decide whether you're going to adopt that perspective or not. And I think of things like the differences between positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and punishment. The differences, you know what they are?
Well, they're hedonistic in nature, I would say, but I guess you're not talking about that.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And really just kind of the benefits of positive reinforcement versus we see a lot of negative reinforcement and punishment as motivators, when in fact, punishment is never a motivator. Like genuinely, the avoidance of punishment is not a good motivator for anything. You read volumes and volumes and volumes about it, how it's not. And the difference is here is that say you've got a button, right? And a lot of people mistake negative reinforcement and punishment.
Right.
They get the two mixed up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we really need to start delineating and teaching people. So say I've got a button, right? And you want to positively reinforce me punching that button every 5 seconds.
Okay.
Every 5 seconds, you teach me, hey, 5 seconds, punch that button. Okay, cool. And you immediately give me chocolate. I love chocolate.
Okay.
Right? Hey, you just positively reinforce that action, right? Mm-hmm. Punch it again, more chocolate. Negative reinforcement is a loud, annoying buzz until I press that button. I've made this negative stimulus go away. But a lot of people see punishment as that. I hit you with a stick if you don't hit the button.
I'm not sure that's a good example. I know what you're getting at.
Give the people a better example.
I think it's best first to talk about punishment. Punishment is not a motivation. You're right. Punishment is the product of it's incentive via disincentive.
Right.
That's the way it should be. But often punishment is a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And so, for example, it's the whole argument against prisons being a deterrent, because a deterrent only holds up if it can counteract the risk for it. And oftentimes the risk in the immediate sense, as well as the entire system of being caught and punishment applied, is part of that risk, either implicitly decided or explicitly.
Yeah.
So I would agree. They're definitely separated.
Well, so think about it in terms of, we'll say, like air traffic training.
Sure.
Right. I felt like a lot of times you'd have much more productive trainers who kind of take away the negative aspects, the potential punishments for failure.
But we're geared and wired for that disposition too,
right?
To identify those things. Things are going good. Like you don't talk. It's kind of like in any
and that's hard.
Yeah. In any organization, yeah.
Right, and those things are harder. It's much easier, to do the punishment. Punishment is easy. It doesn't take much thinking.
No.
At all. It's much more difficult, but I feel like yields such a better product when you really sit down and think of the best ways to properly, positively or negatively reinforce. So
what comes to mind is, say, we'll use air traffic.
Yeah.
Don't do that or you're going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Issue this, clearance appropriately, or I'm going to write you up for it.
Yeah. And that's punishment.
Right. The writing up is, right. When you provide that consequence of punishment, but you could also say something to the effect of, like, doing that will not get you rated.
Yeah.
That's negative reinforcement. And so oftentimes, like, this is the thing I can't stand, and I'm actually glad you brought this up, but when somebody does
that A-type attitude that comes in.
Yeah.
And is a negative.
They will say, when you do something right, you did your job.
Yeah.
No, you should be thankful that they did that right.
Right.
So when I worked at the bank, there was a manager I asked, like, hey, I've told this story a couple of times, but I don't know if I've told it to you, but I said, hey, do you ever thank your tellers for being in balance every day?
Yeah, I think I heard you talking about this a few episodes ago.
Yeah, same thing. It's just, no, it's part of their job, but the consequences of them not getting it right affects you. Like, you can't go home early that night.
Right.
You got to do extra HR, stuff. Like, it's not as cut and dry. So maybe a little bit of thanks is due. Maybe just like as you're about to go to work and break up your morning debrief, you say, hey, actually, before y'all go, I want to thank y'all for just continuing to do the job well.
This is the reason if I catch janitors, I'm like, thank you. Seriously. I could be walking into this funky bathroom.
Right.
But for you.
But the thing is, it doesn't take much encouragement. And that's what's so frustrating is that, like, it doesn't take much encouragement in order for people to feel good because they know instinctively that, like, they're wired to ignore the things that are good happening around them.
Yeah.
Like, look at this room. You know, in this room, like, the rain's not coming down on you. It's fairly temperature controlled. There's good lighting in here. For all intents and purposes, we're safe. There's a lot to be thankful for in this room.
That brings it around to the attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, for sure.
That has been a big part of my recovery from Moody.
Mine as well.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we do what's called our family business meeting every Sunday.
I love this.
Yeah. So we do our family business meeting, and Jillian and I, we pull out our phones and we look at what's on the schedule. You know, so from the past week, if we got any appointments or anything scheduled out for the next week, or even if we scheduled it a month ago, if it's coming up, you know, we sit and say, hey, what do you have going on next week? This, and this. Does it apply to my 10-year-old son? No, probably not. But I'm letting him know. Yeah. You know, everybody's going to know, hey, at some point during the day, I've got a doctor's appointment. You know, I will probably be at work, go to the appointment, go back to work, and they'll never even hear about it, but they know. And it gets it gets all that kind of logistical talk out of the way and lets you enjoy each other.
Sure.
But we also we'll start or end this meeting with something you're grateful for. What's something great that happened this week? It gives you a chance to reflect on the week. It gives you a chance to say, you know, even if it's something silly, it doesn't have to be something big.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be this amazing act of God that happened.
Sure.
It can be, just like you said, as simple as, I've got a roof over my head. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, technology has really come a long way since I was last TDY and separated from my family. I can see them on my telephone screen. Yeah. Crystal clear every night.
Sure.
That's awesome. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
And after a while, that starts to get hardwired in your brain to where you start to see, you know, even things, for instance, a couple of years ago, my grandmother passed and everybody got together to, you know, get the estate set up, do the funeral, say our goodbyes and everything. And it was really, really sad. But all I could think of was like, man, I haven't seen anybody in a while. Like I'm so grateful to just be spending time with them. Mm-hmm. The reason sucks.
Sure.
But in spite of this kind of negative thing, the environment for me was generally positive. I was grateful that my grandmother had an estate that we needed to settle. Like, that's awesome. Everybody doesn't have that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I get to see my brothers and sisters who are all spread out all over the place.
Sure.
I'm grateful that I get to see my parents, my uncle, my cousins, and that we get to just spend this time together. And it's so, I don't know, that particular event struck me where I was like, man, for, a year or two, I've been practicing this, whether I say it out loud or I think it. And I think it's great to say it out loud and make it a routine because, like I said, you hardwire it. And that's been my experience. So even this really negative thing is even like, I can see the good in just about anything. Jillian and I, we tell each other, we don't see bad movies anymore.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, I see.
We don't watch any bad movies ever. Never, ever, ever. And we watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Never a bad one.
And it's because of the perspective that you guys take towards it.
It's because of the perspective we take towards it. Even at the end of the most poorly written movie.
Go on.
Or the worst acted movie, we go, man, they really picked some really nice sets. Really beautiful backgrounds.
So I tried to get my wife to watch the original Leprechaun last night. She wasn't having it. But I did say, like, look, it's not like just it's hilarious in how bad it was, all of it.
Yeah.
And so then she actually had fun kind of watching the movie. But
yeah. So that I really like scary movies, but a lot of times too, I'm thinking about like how they were produced.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was like, doing the jump scares. And I'm like, man, I wonder why they wrote it in at that point. I'm like, man, I wonder how they set up that act. Do you think they told all of the actors about that jump scare? Or do you think they wanted some genuine fright from them, so they didn't tell them? So I'm thinking stuff like that. Like, I'm picking apart these horror movies, and when they get done, I'm like, man, they really picked some great times to do some scary stuff. Man, the makeup effects were off. Man,
that's wonderful.
They could have done computer, but they went conventional.
Yeah, old school.
That's so great. You barely see that anymore. And meanwhile, the dialogue was garbage.
Yeah.
The actors were no name. The production value in general was shoestring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it doesn't matter what we pick anymore. Every movie we watch is a good movie.
There's got to be one.
No.
No?
No. Pick a movie. I'll tell you something good about it.
I'm not sure I could, because I mean, I'm so uncultured.
All the Sharknadoes, like
I haven't seen any of them, so like I might actually find it interesting, just the concept of a shark in a tornado. I mean, I'm so easily amused.
It's really like this most absurd idea that somebody was like, how are we going to make this into a movie? And they've generated this cult following, and there's like 7 or 8 of these movies. That's impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes it a good movie and a good franchise to me. They did something very impressive.
I'm inclined to agree. And maybe that impressive thing was just a ridiculous concept for a movie.
Yeah.
And that deserves some merit, honestly.
Absolutely. You know, if somebody was like, I bet you can't make a movie out of 2 natural disasters. Oh, I bet I could.
That's where it started.
But one's an animal. Okay. And the other's not. It's wind. It's fast, spinning wind. Go. Okay. Yeah, but what actors am I going to get?
Tara Reid.
I accept your challenge.
I accept your challenge.
Hello, USA. Great network. They'll never hire me now.
But that is true. You know, it definitely, I think you have to have a positive perspective on those things. And of course, you know, me leaving Moody is very difficult. It was very difficult for me because I became such a cynic out of there to see things even close to me that I knew were inherently just good, to see them in a positive light. And, you know, my wife and I went through challenges in that. And so it's interesting. One of the ways that I got out of that was, you know, I did kind of a 30-day gratitude thing, and just, you know, I would tell her every day something that, you know, was meaningful and that I was very thankful for. And it didn't take long, like a week and a half. I was just so eager and happy to see her. And there's a guy I was listening to who, he was one of these people who's given like a TED Talk type of thing. And he's like, you know, a woman came up to me and she says, I want to quit my job. I hate my job and this and that. Yeah. He goes, go home and write down all the things that you love about your job and then quit. And he saw her, I guess, a little while later. Again, this story could be made up. But he's like, hey, you know, where are you working at now? And she's like, oh, same place. And he's like, you don't want to quit that job? She's like, no, I got the best job in the world. I love the job. And again, it could be hyperbolic, but I think...
I don't think so at all. I think you could apply that to...
I think the sentiment is true for sure, even if the story isn't.
And it's the effort, I think, that you start to develop, because you see it in people and you see it in things, and you run out very quickly of, like I said, these big miraculous things. You can't be thankful of these big miraculous things all day.
It forces you to see the detail.
At the end of the day, you're like, how cool is a light switch? I have no idea how that works, but like somebody invented that, and that's great. I've got light now wherever I'm at. I don't just have to go to sleep every time I'm in a dark room.
Yeah, no kidding. You didn't have to hold a microphone the whole time. Like, you know,
that would have been lame. You know, you want to be on the podcast?
No, it sounds like work.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm opting out.
Yeah. Well, man, look, it's been great to chat with you, man. It's been amazing. I've had a freaking blast talking to you.
Oh man, me too.
You know, and I'm thankful that you got to come back and do some tech school here at Keesler, and we got to link up. And you know, I've missed you for so many years, and you've always been a positive influence on my life, and you helped me get through a terrible place at Moody. And you know, you're somebody I consider like a lifelong friend, a lifelong brother. So I love you, man. I love Jill and the kids, and I know you got a new one now. And shout out to her. There you go. Love that name.
I know you didn't watch all the way through this. You want to watch Bubble Guppies. I get it. I understand.
But
well,
yeah,
hey, the feeling is absolutely mutual, and I think some of the best things I did were really out of co-opetition with you.
Yeah, I definitely think. Well, here
we should have ended it there. That was solid.
It really was
a great callback.
I know.
Edit.
So we talked about earlier. I wanted to mention this about how it seemed like it was like the retrainees against the air traffic control thing, right? And they didn't give us opportunities, right?
Yeah.
My favorite day though was when the only two people that promoted were you and I. And it was a spectacle made of it. Shout out to Stephen Haro, who just made senior.
Congratulations.
But yeah, so he calls us in the room and he lines everybody up against the wall.
This was brilliant too.
It was so great.
Props for this.
And
if I get the chance to do this to somebody,
yeah. So he was the acting first shirt at the time. He hadn't got his diamond yet, and he comes in. He's like, you guys haven't been towing the weight. We've had problems in the facility. Something of that nature, right?
Yeah, and then he said like, it's about time. People are really going to have to start stepping up. Airmen are going to have to start acting like NCOs. You staff sergeants, you're going to have to start acting like technical sergeants. And you know what? If you're going to act like it, you might as well have the rank for it. And presents.
Yeah, you and I with it. Yeah.
And that's right. Yeah, he called us out. Yeah. Sergeant Belford, Sergeant Toellner.
Yeah, and what was funny about the whole thing is it was out of cycle. So when the original list came out, we didn't make it.
I wasn't even expecting it, honestly.
Yeah, and then I missed it. I think by. Well, I missed it, and then they did some weird readjust, and then we ended up making it, and we were the only two.
We didn't even expect to be, because a lot of times if you're out of cycle, you're out of cycle.
You're done. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you're going to be considered for out of cycle.
Oh, right. It's going to be later on.
You know about it.
Yeah, but this was some
Neither
weird...
you and I knew about this.
Yeah.
This is a very unusual to not...
Yeah, because we tested in cycle.
Yeah, to not be under the impression that you're going to be considered out of cycle.
Yeah.
And,
but God, that was...
And the way he presented it was just so amazing. We both walk up there like, oh, he's about to make an example out of us, and we don't know why.
Yeah, but to be fair, I was like,
maybe
this
we
is par for the course, because this is how it happens here. But like that was literally my mindset. I was like, oh God, what did somebody do that I'm getting blamed for now? Like, what is some half-assed story he's heard that I didn't get to tell my side of the story for? But yeah,
and what a thing to be grateful for too. Like who has a great promotion notification story like that?
Right.
That's awesome.
As Sinatra once said, the greatest revenge is massive success, and today I felt elated by that. So, and I'm glad I got to share that with you. I couldn't have been happier.
Agreed.
But again, brother, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, keep this thing going for another 4 or 5 years. Hell, I might be back.
There you go. Hopefully sooner.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.
Nice.